Hello and welcome to the semifinals of the team championship. First of all, I'm again not alone. I'm joined by my team partner Ristey. Welcome, Ristey.
Thanks for having me again. Pleasure to be back.
Yeah, and now we are at a very exciting stage of the tournament. Only one more game is needed to go to the finals. But as you all can see, we have two very strong opponents. We have Binki and Grozz. And Grotz is on really on fire at the moment in the current international championship. He won his master group with 36 points, only was missing two culture in the game where he finished second to get a clean sheet in his group in a master division. And also in other tournaments, things are going very well for him. While Binky, I think, hasn't been really that active in tournaments in the recent time, but also played in a high level, like maybe 2 years ago. So some really strong opponents, and yeah, let's see how the game will be going. Have you encountered any of those opponents before this match?
Funnily enough, yeah, I've realised that I was facing Grozz once the semi-finals popped up in a couple of the other leagues, in a three-player game in particular, where he did fairly well. I was very aware of his recent form,
Yeah.
and yeah, yeah. But like you said, I hadn't encountered Binky in any games recently. I don't believe.
Yeah. So yeah, some definitely two tough opponents, and let's see how the game went. First of all, we can start by taking a quick look at the leaders and wonders. We have some theater or culture leaders with Fleming and Marlene Dietrich. The Hollywood is there as well. There's also the internet together with Pierre. We have some lab leaders with Bill Gates, Marie Curie, Steve Jobs, and Einstein. So actually quite a bunch of them. Also Spaceflight and the Manhattan Project. Then Ocean Liner Service plus Maria in H2, Suez Camel but no Cook, a bunch of culture leaders with Shakespeare and Anthony Gaudi, all the military action leaders in H2, also both military action. Actually, we have all of the military action leaders in the whole game. Also, Caesar is there. We have Barbarossa to help with the strength, both Gutenberg and Leonardo, also both the strength wonders, Himeji Castle, Great Wall, Silk Road but no Universitas, St. Peter's Basilica but no Forbidden City, and also Michelangelo potentially maybe with St. Peter's Basilica or some other strong wonders in H2 especially. All right, is there anything special that you see in this Leaders and Wonders mix?
Yeah, I noticed that there was a lot of lab synergy in Age 3.
Yeah.
Mainly noted the missing links from Age 2, really, because there was no Newton, no Darwin, and no Bach.
Nobel, no, you probably mean, or and no Bach, of course, yes, and yeah, so that's definitely something to stand out. Also, some strong H2 wonders that you can get in H2. All right, and yeah, then we can maybe start with taking a look at the game. And I'm playing here in first position. You're playing in last position. The games are always structured in a way that two teammates are playing behind each other. And this time we are in first and fourth seed. And for me, there's a very strong wonder available, the Library of Alexandria. However, we still needed to consider of maybe going for Caesar here because early aggressive play, I think, in team games can be quite strong. And if I go for Library here, then our opponents have the chance to go for both Caesar and the Colossus, maybe going for an aggressive early game. But if I go for Caesar here, they might still go for Colossus. Playing Caesar against Colossus is a bit awkward. Maybe we will at least be able to get Sansu or something to have one aggressive leader for ourselves as well. And so at the end, we decided that I will go for the library here. It's just such a very strong and solid wonder, and hopefully we will be able to survive a potential aggressive play with Caesar and Colossus. And then Binky will just go for Aristotle. Now we were interested to see will Grozz indeed go for Caesar and Colossus, and he indeed goes for that, and we have to be now a bit careful in our next turns. All right, then we are at your turn, Ristey, and what were the options or what were your thoughts on the turn?
So considering both of our opponents had taken leaders, and Binky didn't have a wonder, we kind of felt that leaving Homer and Sun Tzu on the row with their to enter the row as options meant that the preference for deciding on what to take here for 3 civil actions was favourable towards a wonder. And with Roman roads and Stonehenge both being very good wonders, my personal preference is I do like a happy face with my AJ wonder. So we decided to go for Stonehenge for some added science as well as the happy face to begin with, potentially leaving Roman roads for Binky, but at the same point, we we might have the option to pick from Homer, Sun Tzu, or another leader when it comes back to my turn.
Yeah, there are definitely
Uh,
no. Uh,
yeah, so that left me 1 civil action, and with Stonehenge being 4 civil actions to complete, as well as what would have been Roman roads. Looking at the yellow cards available for 1 civil action, it was kind of out of rich land and stockpile. And given that both the wonders were civil action heavy, Richland seemed the better choice because it would have cost an extra civil action to play the stockpile, which would have been a very demanding civil action start.
Yes, that's true. And also, I think it's the Wonder choice. Also, of course, we influence maybe what Wonder Binky is getting. Here's Aristotle, and I feel like Aristotle works a little bit better with the Stonehenge than with the Rome roads because you can easily get the monarchy's code of laws with the Stonehenge and then have more civil actions, more chance to take even more technologies. And with the Rome roads, it can sometimes be a bit more awkward. And also, we, I think, needed to think about if I, at my next turn, will intend to go for Sun Tzu, because if that would have been the case, you could have taken the Rome roads, which would made Sun Tzu drop down to 1 civil action for me. But at the end, we decided that Homer is also actually quite a fine leader who also helps with the military. And if I go for him, then you also might still have a shot at getting Sun Tzu at your turn. And so we decided that I don't really want to go for Sun Tzu anyway. And with that, that wasn't really a reason at the end in order to go for Rome roads. All right, so now it's my turn again. And the plan was maybe to go for Homer, but the cards that dropped down the row made the turn a bit more difficult. Not a very clear, straightforward, easy second turn, how it sometimes is the case, because Homer is still a very solid choice that I could go for, but there's also Hammurabi available, and also the Engineering Genius has dropped, which can, that early in the game, just give you a nice boost with the additional resources. And I think it's definitely a real consideration to go for Hammurabi here, but with those team games sometimes being a bit aggressive, and Grozz already having Caesar and Colossus, it just felt like it's maybe just a tiny bit too risky to go for Hammurabi here and Homer with the library. I wonder that I probably want to finish quickly anyway, and then him giving some additional resource for the military. Just I think is the safer pick and also will give me some good value. And also Homer, I don't necessarily need to elect because I don't really want to use his benefits now anyway. And with that, it's also more easily possible to take the Engineering Genius for 2 civil actions, and I can just keep Homer in hand for one more turn, get the mine, the third going, and with the Engineering Genius, I might be able to finish the library a bit quicker, and also we take that card away from our opponents, as hate drafting is certainly important, or you need to take into account what cards you leave to your opponents, with it being a zero sum. With 2 teams playing against each other. So at the end, that was the turn, but maybe it could be fine to go for Hammurabi. It's just such a strong leader. At the end, it maybe could end up being a bit dangerous. Then I will get my first draw, and immediately I draw 2 strength events, Crusades, Border Conflict. For now, maybe better to know that those are not in the deck, as Grozz has Caesar plus Colossus. Binki goes for Aristotle, takes the Roman roads, builds a mine and increases his population. Then Grozz will go for Caesar, builds a mine and takes the iron. Some interesting cards are coming down the road. The first copy of iron is very early, but there's actually also Jan Žižka coming down the road. And at your turn, where we are at now, we had to think about what do we want to do with Žižka. So what were your thoughts on this turn?
So we had a bit of a discussion over the leaders, feeling that Hammurabi, as you rightly said, was probably a bit risky, especially with Grozz having the Colossus Caesar combo, which sounds probably like a healthy fast food option, actually. But Hammurabi was kind of pushed to one side, and then Confucius. I mean, I've got Stonehenge, so it's a very science heavy option that. But when we considered that Žižka was on the row, and we didn't really want to give our opponents some more firepower, we had Žižka, and if I was going to take Žižka, that would sort of mess my turn up a little bit. So in the end, we decided that you would look to take Žižka, and then I would take the Sun Tzu option, which was a good balanced choice against our opponents, and sort of made my turn more standard. So I took an elected Sun Tzu, then built a mine and popped for my turn, and then I ended up drawing a colony card, the Phalanx Tactic, Scientific Breakthrough, and a pact, which we always love, the Open Borders Agreement.
Yeah, pacts being especially useful in those team games. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's an interesting aspect in the team games. Normally, of course, as the Sun Tzu player, you really want to take Jan Žižka, but of course, in a team game, I also can now just go for Jan Žižka, as I then also can maybe profit from the upgraded tactic, especially, and then you can just get your mine going and don't have to delay any stuff in order to take Jan Žižka for expensive here. So I think that should be a good choice. For my turn, I certainly will go for Jan Žižka. Now that you have gone for Sun Tzu, we have the chance to maybe really get some strong value out of Žižka. And also, additionally, I have Homer. It's good to have a leader in hand and being able to replace him whenever I want to. However, with already having taken the Engineering Genius for 2 civil actions, I'm now a bit tight on civil actions, and so the last 2 will be going into increasing my population and building the second lab. It definitely could have been an option here to just build the first step of the library instead of building the second lab, keeping a free population, maybe being able to finish the library a bit quicker. But if there will be some events revealed, maybe I can finish the library next turn anyway if we get some additional resources. Of course, there's always now the danger of missing out on a free religion or free warrior, but I think at the end it's maybe fine to just get the additional science production going earlier, and I have an additional happy phase from Homer. I can build military units more cheaply anyway, so maybe that free warrior and free religion is not as important as it is maybe is in other situations. And yeah, so that was the turn. I have now Jan Žižka. Now, of course, we were interested to see how the game will be developing in the sense of which players will get which military attacks, which tactics will we draw, and which tactic will get upgraded at the end. That now will be quite interesting. And I draw the first tactic for myself now, but maybe not the ideal Žižka tactic, the heavy cavalry and also the historic territory. Binki takes the irrigation for 2 civil actions, scores an additional science with Aristotle, starts working on the Rome roads, is not building the second lab yet, instead rather wants to get the wonder finished quickly. Then Grozz will go for seeding, opens the development of politics, some additional draws for all players, and I actually got quite an interesting draw out of that one, because now I have the medieval army tactic available, and that on the other hand is maybe the most interesting tactic for Jan Žižka. So if I should now have a chance of getting a copy of knights, my Jan Žižka could have quite some strong potential, and maybe we can make use out of those strength events that I have drawn after all. So that was an interesting draw from me. Did you draw anything interesting from development of politics?
Firstly, I drew the knowledge of the ancients, and then I drew two tactics myself. And I drew the Legion and the fighting band tactics, so all warrior heavy tactics there.
Yeah, and interestingly, we have now already access to all 5 different tactics. You have Phalanx, Legion, Fighting Band. I have Heavy Cavalry and Medieval Armies. So, yeah, now we have already the full variety to choose from in order to, and we can now just see what fits us best, which is quite nice. Then it's Grozz's turn. He will go for Barbarossa, who maybe wants to follow up a little bit on a potential strength push play. He will also take the irrigation, having some additional food production is of course quite strong with Barbarossa, and then he will increase his population to get out of corruption. Then we are at your turn, and first of all we needed to decide on whether to play politics or not.
Yeah, so when we were discussing whether to seed, we figured that both of us having additional science wonders, seeding knowledge of the ancients seemed like it would be more beneficial for our opponents. The same with scientific breakthrough. So we ultimately decided we didn't want to seed. As for my turn, relatively standard start in building a lab and popping. Then we were looking at tactics and what to do with the rest of the turn. So we decided that maybe building a step of the Stonehenge would be decent, and grabbing the copy of Swordsman because it was an extra military tech. But after discussing the options of maybe a potential Michelangelo pick as well for 2, we felt solid leaders like Joan or Saladin might be better and a safer play, less greedy, in fact. And then further discussions, we settled on not popping, so just building the lab and then taking the frugality to give us additional food at a later date, which might be more beneficial if the game takes a very military heavy start, which our opponents definitely seemed like they were gearing up for, especially Grozz. This also allowed the copy of Knights to fall to 2 civil actions for yourself. And then when we were deciding on what cards to keep at the end of the turn, we figured that we probably had to commit to some tactics, or at least revealing a tactic on my turn because of the amount of cards that I could keep. And if we were going to keep one of the 2 tactics for warriors, it might be better to keep the Legion just in case our opponents decided to piggyback the tactic. It was a lot easier to copy the Legion tactic, the fighting band tactic, even though on the flip side of that, the fighting band tactic might have been better for some colony play had we decided to take that route.
No, but
And then, sorry, go on.
Yeah, it's a good point about the colony play, but of course, with Grozz having Colossus, Barbarossa, it could be quite dangerous to put some colonies in there, and then the fighting band could maybe help actually Grozz or opponents to potentially go for some colonies. So, in that regard, allegiance is, I think, is a bit safer to reveal.
Yeah, for sure. It was one way of potentially trying to counter it, but I don't think it was very viable at all. So we swiftly went for revealing the Legion tactic and holding on to the Phalanx tactic as a perfect power play for yourself under Zizka.
Yeah, and also I think the knights now falling down to 2 civil actions is quite
The
important.
Phalanx.
No, it's quite important that the knights will be available for me because I have the strong medieval army tactic. You still have the phalanx tactic in hand, so that being available able to grab that copy for 2 is quite strong and was definitely a big and important reason to take 2 cards from the row at your turn. And then what draws did you get at the end of your turn?
Yeah, so I had a colony card. I had the Phalanx tactic that I was holding on to. I've got Inhabited 1, another colony card, and I actually drew the second copy of the Heavy Cavalry, just so we were taking away as many tactics away from our opponents as possible.
Yeah, that's certainly true. Um, yeah, then at my turn, I will actually start by pushing the Crusades. Maybe a little bit risky, but with me now getting the copy of Knights, you having the copy of Swordsman, we felt a little bit more confident in our ability to maybe fight for some strength events. However, not that confident to already put the border conflict in there, but maybe moving the deck a little bit forward, seeding a strength event, which is maybe not the most influential one, I think is quite interesting here. And also if some additional resources would be revealed. I guess no, that's not a reason because the knights will always be grabbed, so the library will not be finished this turn, but I think actually additional resources would have potentially even caused some little corruption issues, so the development of science was a good reveal, and then I can take the copy of knights, and with the remaining civil actions I can increase my population to get out of corruption and then build a step of the library. I have a full hand. I could have also elected Homer already, but maybe finishing the library is even more urgent at the next turn and getting Homer elected. Ideally, I will be able to do both. At the next turn, one interesting option could be to finish the library, elect Homer, develop the knights, build one knight with Homer's additional resources, and then I can, the turn after, maybe go for Shishka, again use Homer's resources in a second knight, and already I will have a lot of strength going, and with that clear plan for the next 2 turns, I think we have some good chances that maybe I will be the strongest and have the potential to win some strength events. And then there was also the thought of maybe revealing the medieval army tactic already in order to keep more cards in hand, but it just gives some information away. Maybe our opponents can prepare better for the strength push from me that is about to come. And even though I now have to discard a colonization card so that they can keep border conflict and a medieval army, I think it's good to not give our opponents that information yet. And now, then we are at Binki's turn. He will take the Code of Laws for 3 civil actions, interestingly. It's quite expensive, but of course having more civil actions is quite strong with Aristotle, but it's also especially expensive in the sense that he now is lacking the civil actions to finish the Rome road, so an interesting choice by them. Yeah, I mean, Code of Laws with Aristotle can just go a long way, so let's see how it will pay off for them. Then Grozz will seed with Caesar, opens the development of markets, some additional food or resources can be gained here, and he will take the resources, starts going for some iron upgrades, is at +5 production here, and then gets out of corruption with increasing his population. The next turn can maybe finish the Colossus. Alright, then we are at your turn.
Yeah, so the only card I could seed was Inhabited 1, and given that Grozz with his very big synergy towards winning and rebuilding after colonies, especially with Barbarossa and his bonus once he completes the Colossus, seemed like it was just not particularly wise to push the deck. So at the start of my turn, for the development of markets, we felt that taking the resources to finish Stonehenge was the best option here. Gets me out of corruption. It spends my 3 civil actions and gives me 1 last civil action, which I had a couple of options to spend. Richland 1 would have been a fine pick for saving resources when I managed to go into either a farm or a mine. But without having seen the development of religion or the development of warfare, we felt that popping using frugality was probably the best choice. So I had an idle worker sitting there in case one of the events were revealed.
Yeah, I think it's just
With
a very, very clean, efficient turn, and also now you are maybe prepared with having already increased your population to, for example, take a card for expensive. Especially, I think a copy of Knights could be interesting, because if we manage to maybe upgrade my medieval army tactic at some point, it could turn out to be very strong.
Yeah, and on that note, we decided that copying your medieval army was probably the best option there. So discarding my phalanx card uh, at the end of my turn was probably the best. We decided to keep the two colony cards, defense cards, and then for my draws, we went into Plan B for countering Colossus Caesar combo with Barbarossa in the background, and I drew two colonies to remove them from our opponent's potential hand. So I drew the wealthy territory, vast territory, an aggression in enslave, and a third colony card.
Yeah, so already some colonies are drawn by us that our opponents can't have now. I think I also draw the historic territory, if I'm not mistaken, earlier, and so not really that many colonies left for our opponents now.
Yeah, the only downfall is that there's 9 cards left that we can draw from, so the deck will actually reshuffle.
That is very true. So with development of politics, Caesar, Sun Tzu, the cards were drawn very, very quickly. That's a good point. I didn't even notice that already. Only 9 cards left in the deck and 32 still in the civil deck. So that's actually very crazy. And at my turn, we were brave enough to seed the border conflict into the deck, but yeah, the plan of me now starting to go for knights and next turn going for Shishka should be working. You can maybe either get a copy of knights, the next one has now dropped in the row, it might be taken by our opponents, or if not, you can potentially go for the Legion tactic, and hopefully we will be able to play around those strength events. The development that is revealed is development of settlement, and with that I can just finish library, Electromare, develop the knights, build one. This turn we also decided to reveal the tactic. It just gives me more strength, making sure that I will be a bit stronger. Otherwise, for example, Grozz could overtake me with finishing the Colossus, and maybe if they seed a lot, there could actually be already some strength events revealed before it's our turn again. And so I think now me having some additional strength with revealing the tactic should be fine. Gives of course our opponents some knowledge. Maybe they will prioritize getting the knights more highly now, but yeah, I think I just need the strength now, as the event deck might flip soon. And overall, I think just a very clean turn. And next turn, I might then finally be ready to get Jan Žižka going. I don't draw any new cards, so the ones that I have are Call to Arms and Good Harvest. Binki Seeds opens the development of civil life, finishes the Rome roads, I think increased his population with the development of civil life, and then he has still 3 civil actions left, and he is actually willing to pay 3 civil actions for the knights. Makes it that now you and Grozz are the players who are still missing the knights, and with Grozz playing right in front of you, he might have good chances to get that. And yeah, so there is now the danger that you actually might not have a chance to get the knights, which could make our decision on which tactic to upgrade a bit more difficult. Then it's Grozz's turn. He will use the development of Civil Life to build a second lab finally. Goes for another iron upgrade, has now already all of his mines fully upgraded, and takes the Monarchy in the Cultural Heritage. Monarchy can give him the 3rd military action, which is always strong to have with Barbarossa. Then we are at your turn.
Yeah, so my turn was it was a very difficult turn because there was a lot of moving parts. As you rightly said, Binky taking the second copy of Knights meant that my position to get the third copy behind Grozz was highly unlikely, that he would prioritize it and snatch for 3 civil actions. So the hope for trying to boost your tactic was fading. Seeding was awkward as well because when we take a look at our opponents as civilizations, they're low low science, and the perfect counter to our science wonders would have been to see Dark Ages as a counterplay. So we discussed what we felt we should do, considering there was one AJ event in the deck. And preferred that you would seed Call to Arms, so I wouldn't flip the deck too soon, and we had some time to manage our cards. And then I get my free population from the development of settlements. Then I can use the development of civil life to either pop again or develop swordsman. But with suspected dark ages, we decided that saving one science due to developing swordsman could potentially be lost if dark ages did happen to be in the deck and get revealed. And I had no real way of burning science against my 4 civil actions. So we decided to use the development of civil life to pop. This save food seemed like the better option. Then Saladin seemed like a solid leader as well, and probably the best leader for Binki. So it was a fine choice for myself. And as a denial, uh, this way we wanted to remain flexible with the tactics as well. So we decided that we would just take Saladin to hand as opposed to replacing Sun Tzu already before we could see what would happen with the third copy of Knights. Then the 2 yellow cards on the row looked pretty tasty, and we both decided we wanted a share. So for me, taking Engineering Genius 1 would leave Breakthrough, and then Breakthrough for yourself, and then I could develop Swordsman and build one. This pushes Strength before you seed. Also leaves Binki and Grozz as the weakest. So once you seed, those 2 are the 2 weakest, and then we can almost get a small feel for how confident they were about putting strength events into the deck by whether they were keen to seed or not in using their politics phase. And then for my draws at the end of the turn, I held on to the 2 colony cards, the colony defense cards, and discard the colonies themselves. Then I drew a 3rd colony card, again, an aggression in kidnap, and another territory in developed territory 1. So as the deck is close to flipping, I had knowledge of 4 of the 6 colony cards and 4 out of the 7 colonies themselves, which was a lot of information to go on top of our heavy tactic knowledge as well.
Yeah, that's true. This was quite crazy how many colonization-related cards we drew, and yeah, so that was a bit more of a not completely straightforward turn, but I think Saladin will be useful. It was a tough decision not electing him right away. The civil action is quite useful, but if you should maybe still have a shot at getting knights, it could just be so strong. Maybe upgrading the medieval army tactics, so maybe delaying that by a little bit could be worth it, and we have to see when Saladin will get elected exactly. And then, as you already said, at my turn I will seed Call to Arms into the deck, another strength event. Hopefully we will be able to not lose any civil actions to that event. The development of crafts is revealed, and that is actually an interesting one, because with the additional resources I actually have enough resources to not only build 1 knight, but also thanks to the additional resource from a mare, I can just build 2 knights after going through Anshishka, putting me at 13 strength. Of course, you could say maybe the 3rd knight is not even that necessary, because even with 9 strength, it's more than enough to be the strongest. And for the moment, I sadly don't have any aggression card in hand, only the Good Harvest. But nonetheless, being at 13 strength puts even more pressure on our opponents. Maybe they will do something awkward in order to respond. And also, there is at least a chance that I will draw an aggression. And with 9 strength, I think our opponents might find ways to be safe from an aggression. So even though I have more draws, maybe a higher chance of getting one, I might not be able to use it then. So ideally our opponents will now do some awkward stuff in order to respond, and I have a lot of strength going, and also now actually 4 culture production, which might lead to having a bit of a culture lead. And then I have 3 civil actions left, and as you said, we decided to that we both will get 1 out of those strong yellow cards. You went for the Engineering Genius, so that you can maybe go for Wonder. As soon as you have Saladin, you will be at 5 civil actions, but I also will be at 5 civil actions. Now I go for the Code of Laws, but now that I have spent the 6 science, it So the breakthrough and the additional science that I get from that should be quite helpful. And also, I am now prepared for the Dark Ages with being very low in science, which, as you also said, could be a likely event seeded by our opponents. You sadly still have a lot of science saved up, but at least I now will be able to dodge that event in case it is indeed in there and should be revealed quickly. And no, I mean, another card that definitely could be considered here is the Alchemy, having something to upgrade. But the Code of Laws and going up to 5 civil actions, I think, is maybe a bit more important. And then after spending the science, the breakthrough is just giving me science without needing to invest into anything. And there are still some more copies of Alchemy and Iron coming in the next turn. I don't have enough science to get into them anyway. So I think the chances are good that in the next 2 turns there will be either a copy of Alchemy or Iron available for me. So I don't necessarily have to take one now. With having switched the leader, of course, going for the Taj Mahal could be an option here, but I'm very low in resources. There are some strong H2 wonders, also all of the other H1 wonders still left, so I think at this point it's not good to block myself from potential other wonders for a potentially very long time. So that was my turn. I only get one draw. It was, of course, interesting to see will I get an aggression. Sadly not. I will have the rats. So that could be interesting. If maybe Grozz wants to go for some big food production setup with Barbarossa, maybe we can see the rats and as a counter to that. Then it's Binki's turn. He will take the monarchy for 2 civil actions, interestingly. With taking a technology card, he has now enough science to go for the knights. He builds 1, he builds 2, so he is doing some investments into strength with building 2 already. He makes sure to be able to copy the medieval army tactic at the next turn with already having 2 knights, so that at the next turn he maybe will be relatively safe. For now he would be in danger of an aggression, but sadly I don't have any in hand. He also then takes the alchemy and the urban growth, maybe being able to go for some increased science production at some point. Then Grozz will seed, and the first strength event, and also maybe the most important one, is revealed immediately, which we were very happy to see. Grozz will now have to destroy something. I will gain 3 additional resources, and with me being relatively low in resources at the moment, that will be quite helpful for me. And now, interesting that they were willing to push, but maybe just had a strong event. And I think Grozz at his turn will also not get that much stronger, so he would have been the weakest after his turn. Anyway, he's going for a revolution, is delaying the Colossus for 1 more turn, has used Barbarossa 1 time, and has now the monarchy going with 5 civil and 3 military actions. And then we are at your turn again.
So the turn started off as a bit of a headache. Same scenario with not wanting to seed the colony. Card was the developed one. So we had a lot of discussion and we decided that Saladin's time had come. So we would elect him mainly because of the uncertainty over the 3rd copy of knights, future turn to try and play them in whilst enhancing your tactic would look something like taking a copy of knights, building a knight for myself, and then copying the tactic to not remain behind. That requires 3 military actions, and I would only have the 2. So we decided that it would be best to commit already and protect my own interests in going for a legion, and sort of give up on the fact that I probably wasn't going to get the 3rd copy of knights and let Grozz take that. Didn't want to help our opponents as well by enhancing the tactic if I was going to be the one that would miss out on it. Kind of shoot myself in the foot there. So we decided that to also increase my strength, the Himeji Castle was a military, gave culture, and it was gave myself the sacrificing capability should the need arise. Then for the rest of the turn, we decided hopping with building a unit saved corruption. Now going for a swordsman made me stronger than Binki, put me into 2nd strongest, but going for a warrior would leave me enough resources on the next turn to complete Himeji's castle, which was probably more value. So with the last civil action, we decided that we would grab Richland 1 with iron in mind, which would have been favourable. But when we considered taking Saladin's civil action, getting iron going at the next turn is quite likely, and then I could do 1 to 2 upgrades. So we decided that Himeji's castle probably wasn't the best option to complete or look to complete for next turn. So we decided to go for the additional strength and go for the swordsman option. As for my draws, I kept the 2 colony cards again, and then in form, I drew strategic 1. So at this point of the game, Ristey the Scout was only missing historic 1 for the full set, which I believe you had knowledge of actually, and it seemed like a perfect counter Colossus play. And I do believe in our message. I'm going to highlight this mainly for myself. But you said that the counter Colossus play in drawing all the colonies for myself was inspiring. So I just want it out there that being called, and I'm going to call it inspirational, by a Through the Ages great is a life goal ticked for me.
No, I mean, that's certainly worked out quite well here, and Barbarossa hopefully won't have any colonies to win in the near future. And so tough decision at your turn with electing Saladin, giving up on the dream of maybe both of us having a medieval army tactic running. I think we also had even the thought of maybe electing Saladin this turn, but you actually copying medieval army and upgrading it so that I'm already at 16 strength, but I don't have any aggressive cards in hand. And as you said, you might then at the end be the player who is the only player who is playing on the not upgraded tactic if Grozz gets the last copy of Knights. So I think at the end maybe just upgrading the Legion is sadly the best choice. And then you can take the civil action. I will seed at my turn. We are now both the 2 strongest. There are some more strength events in there, and here we decided to push reds because Grozz probably wants to go for some additional food production with Barbarossa. We both don't have any copy of irrigation in hand, so the red should just be the better seed than the good harvest. And the event revealed is indeed the Dark Ages. So we had the right feeling about that event being in there. I managed to dodge it. Sadly, you will lose 5 signs, which is of course quite a setback, but sadly there wasn't really a good way to play around it. Maybe going for Theocracy could have been an option, but Theocracy can also be a bit limiting at some point. I think we considered a Theocracy at your turn. Maybe should have considered it more, but with the Engineering Genius, the Magic Castle was just also such a nice option. So sadly a big science loss here, but hopefully you will be able to manage. Then I will increase my population, and I have a bit of an issue to get out of corruption here. I could just build religion if I would like to. That happy face I might need relatively soon anyway. The thing being that there's beer in the game, there's still a copy of Bread and Circuses, so maybe if I manage to get into arenas, that could be even better. And so at the end, we decided that I will rather go for an additional knight, which also makes it a bit easier which cards to take with my civil actions. So I guess I could have, after building the religion, maybe taken alchemy just +1 yellow card, but now with having an additional civil action, with having built a knight and gotten out of corruption like this, I have an additional civil action which allows me to take the swordsman, which is a bit of a hate draft. Of course, can also end up being useful for myself to help me fulfilling some H2 tactics, but Binki and Grozz are now both playing without swordsman, and that could maybe help us keeping our strength lead. Committing to the knight could be a bit problematic because at the next turn the age might likely not have ended. I can increase my population, but in 2 turns I will have an uprising issue unless I go for a happy face solution. So the turn in 2 turns will basically locked in getting a happy face solution unless something from the event deck will help me. But yeah, it's just a good way to get out of corruption. It makes me even more threatening, and ideally I will be able to keep the knight, and who knows, at some point maybe even going for a third farm or another warrior to go for a fourth tactic with Janshishka. And then with the remaining 3 civil actions, I will go for the alchemy and the breakthrough, just having something to upgrade at the next turn. I can maybe go for 2 upgrades to alchemy, getting some really strong science production going, or if maybe there's a copy of iron available, I could also go for some iron upgrades. I could have taken the urban growth instead of the breakthrough, but I will still need a government form, and with that I think having even more science should be even better. And also both of our opponents are relatively low in science, so it's also the card that is maybe more important to take away from them. So I think that's at the end the best yellow card to take here. Again, we were very interested to see. Now we have a bit of a higher chance. I will get 2 draws. Will there be any aggression draw, so that maybe there's a chance of aggressing either Binki or Grozz at the next turn? And sadly, no aggression draw, instead a phalanx tactic and a colonization card. Again, the deck was just reshuffled before I drew my cards, I think. So, yeah, maybe it is actually the phalanx tactic that you had earlier, definitely possible. The colonization card, at least, could end up being quite useful. Then we are at Binki's turn. He will copy the medieval army tactic, but if he isn't doing a revolution, he is still in danger of an aggression. Sadly, again, I don't have one to punish them, but actually, he might even be safe because he's going for Joan of Arc now, has developed the irrigation, and will then increase his population, builds the third farm, and get some really strong food production going, which might work well for him, but at least in the next event deck, the reds will be coming, and maybe there will be some food lost then. Grozz will finish the Colossus, is going up to 6 strength, goes for the irrigation, goes for an upgrade, is also building a farm, is now at 3 food production, and can soon maybe go for some more Barbarossa activations. And then we are at your turn again.
So my turn was very much a deja vu. It was same card types in colonies, just a different turn. So we didn't want to seed a colony as my only seedable card. So turned down the politics phase again.
No, I mean,
So my
you were the Sansu player, but actually I have seeded all of our events, so that also shows again how many of those colonies you had.
yeah, so I think this is my 5th seedable turn, turn 6, and I still haven't seeded a card yet.
Yeah.
Oh, I might have seeded one at the start actually.
Nice. I think actually all were seeded by me, if I noted it correctly.
Yeah, yeah, I actually haven't. So yeah, I'll keep up my my good form. We're not seeding, and for this turn, it's probably the easiest turn I'll make. It was partly spoken about in the last turn. So taking iron for 2, developing, and then using the double upgrade, which played most of my turn, basic enough. Although we did give some consideration to upgrading a warrior to swordsman. This and taking the strengths of Saladin would avoid the call to arms, but if we did so, I was the 1 resource short for completing Himeji's castle at the next turn, and we decided that it was more important to complete the Himeji's castle than to be looking to push second strongest. So, as for my draws, I kept the 2 colony cards that have been with me for quite some time already, Gather and Dust, and I drew the trade agreement pact, sadly, and the the enslave aggression, which I really wish I could have handed over to yourself.
Yeah, that's sad that we can't share maybe some politics cards in the team game. That would be really great now. So at my turn, I will sadly actually not use my politics phase at all. I could have maybe seeded because there are things are still the Crusades, Call to Arms in the deck that we could reveal, but the Good Harvest at that point just looked like it might give our opponents a lot more value, with Grozz especially also having Barbarossa, so we decided to rather not push that one in. And then at my turn, I will start going for some alchemy upgrades. There's also a copy of iron available for 2 civil actions. I could have just gone for 2 iron upgrades, but I have the alchemy already in hand, and I think the science production will also be quite useful. There's James Watt in the game, there's the railroad in the game, so I think there's some arguments to make to maybe leave myself open for coal. And so I think that it's just fine to go for the alchemies here and leave the iron on the row. Can go for 2 upgrades, and then normally in such a situation I think Ridgeland is a card that you would really like to take. But here I think the urban growth is even better because, as said, at the next turn, after now having increased my population, I will need either theology or bread and circuses in order to fix my happy faces after I will have lost 2 yellow tokens. So the urban growth very likely being used very soon, and with that it seemed a better pick. I like the better pick than the Ridgeland, especially because the urban growth is even the card that allows me to build a theology. Without it, I only would have had a bread and circuses as an option, which is a bit dangerous. And I could have taken both urban growth and Ridgeland, but at the next turn H2 will have started. There might be some interesting cards available. Also, I might actually need a bunch of civil actions in order to fix my happy faces. So I think here it's better to maybe just play it more civil action effectively and only take the urban growth and not both urban growth and Ridgeland. But I have now 5 science production going. I'm still the strongest. I'm really starting to get a culture lead here, so I think my civilization looks quite well, and you have some iron production. You will get the Imeji Castle, so I think we have quite a solid start here, and let's see how it will continue in H2. Also, I will get some draws. I draw the Reign of Terror, a colonization card, and a wealthy territory, so still no aggression, but now I think our opponents might also find ways to actually make them completely safe. Binki Seeds, the Pestilence is revealed, which I think all players have some free populations, but while I have a free population, it will still turn out to be a very annoying event for me because I now can't put that free population that I have into Happy Face solution, meaning in order to avoid uprising, I have actually to delete something now, so that Pestilence actually is quite annoying here. Binki increases his population, builds a religion, which also makes him a bit stronger with Joan of Arc, maybe indicating also that he has actually one H1 colonization card in hand, as the 1 strength makes the difference now, being able to defend against an aggression or not, and he completes his food upgrades, is now at a very big food production, takes the Ridgeland, is low in science for now, so an interesting setup. Also interesting that he took Theocracy while already having the Monarchy, but Theocracy of course being a nice synergy with Joan of Arc, and both of our opponents having some strong food production, which long term certainly could give them a bit of an advantage in the military. So we maybe have to embrace the time now where we are still the strongest, at least I'm still. And Grozz will use Barbarossa, goes for another warrior, copies the upgraded Legion tactic, and he will go for the Great Wall here, which I think will be a very strong wonder for him. For now he's only at 9 strength, but he will be at 13 at the next turn already. With Barbarossa he will be able to go for more units, and then he could actually be quite threatening. So that is, I think, quite a strong wonder for him. He starts working on it, just spends the civil actions effectively, and at the next turn can finish it while still having 3 civil actions left. And then we are at U-turn again. Also H2 is starting now. The last copy of Knights is actually the last copy of the whole H1 deck, so that was very late now.
Yeah, so Knights showing up right at the end, not very helpful. So I had a relatively easy start to my turn, in particular keeping my form with no cards to seed, so I was not damaging the event deck at all again. So we knew we wanted to complete Himeji's Castle using Engineering Genius 1 for the discount, which left 3 civil actions. Given the fact that we had a fresh age starting, and no real way to spend any sort of resources, figured that maybe grabbing a happy face solution was quite important, especially for us both. So we looked at drama and bread and circuses as options, with the option also to dig deep for team sports in the three civil action category. We figured that if you were to take bread and circuses, I dipped for team sports, then we're perfectly prepared for Pierre, as he's in the game, and going for any of the age one cards made my turn a bit clunky in terms of trying to spend the rest of my civil actions nicely. So my turn just comprised of completing a Reggie's Castle for two civil actions, then going for team sports. As for my draws, I kept both the colony cards again, creature of habit me. Then I drew the plunder as an aggression for age two, probably a bit late for yourself, but again, something else that we probably would have handed over if possible, and the international agreement. So a seedable card, probably more in favour for yourself at the moment as the strongest.
Yeah, that's true. Even though with the Great Wall, Grozz could get a threat relatively soon, but nice that you have now the option to seed something else than a colony. And then we are at my turn, and sadly, there is this skull right next to the event deck, which indicates that I will now lose a population, and that will be quite annoying. As now, first of all, I will start by seeding Thor, and there is a strength event revealed. Imichi Castle made sure that you are not the weakest any longer, meaning the Crusades will turn out to be in our favor. Our culture lead will get even bigger now. And then I have to disband something. I think disbanding something economical here would just be extremely costly. And at least for now, I will still keep the strength lead. Also, another strength event is out now. I have now pushed the Reign of Terror into the next event deck. And that's something that could certainly backfire. I mean, you have at least the team sports to maybe get some more strength. And also Saladin potentially, but Reign of Terror potentially could backfire, but putting a colony or good harvest in there was also not too great, and I think pushing here is just quite strong in order to get some strength events out while none of us is the weakest. And yeah, I have to at the end I will disband a knight here. Disbanding a warrior would cost me a tactic with Jan Shishka, so the knight that was built earlier sadly has to be rebuilt now. Has to be disbanded now, meaning that the investment wasn't too great at the end. So the pestilence being quite a bit harmful here. With fixing my uprising issues by just disbanding something, it's now actually not completely necessary any longer to even take a happy face solution. But the bread and circuses with beer could just still be quite nice to have. But nonetheless, we considered some different lines, and it's also a particularly interesting decision on how to react to the iron, but also this early coal that has dropped, because there's a chance of me just going for an iron upgrade this turn, maybe grabbing bread and circuses with the last two civil actions. There could be the chance of just grabbing coal, making sure to have that copy with the railroad and also potentially James Watt. The coal could just be a lot stronger than the iron here. So if I take it for 3, I could just secure it for myself. Or there's the option that at the end we actually went for, and that is I will go for the bread and circuses. I will build one going up to 14 strength, maybe making sure that I have one additional strength, which could help me remaining the strongest just for a little bit longer. Also for happy face related events, it could be very helpful having that arena available. And then I could not just take the iron in hand, but taking the iron would make the make it that the coal falls down to 2 civil actions for Binki. Binki also still needs something to upgrade his mines. And maybe he will actually take the coal for 3, but it would be very expensive for him. He has to fix an uprising. His science is quite low anyway. He has low, not a lot of hand space. So I think we can have some good hopes here that he's not willing to take the coal for 3. Maybe Grotz would then hate draft the coal, but potentially could also that mean that it will result in Binki missing out on coal completely, as I'm playing in front of him and could have better chances for the second copy. And so here at the end we decided to actually go for warfare instead, letting the coal stay in 3, hoping that I have a chance to actually get a coal for cheaper the next turn, and the warfare could be quite helpful in case I maybe get a republic going, to then have a way to get an additional military action at some point. So that was quite interesting. Maybe I could just go for iron, but I really thought that there could be some good chances that this coal will make it through to us, but let's see if maybe Binki or Grozz will be willing to take it away. And then I will discard the Phalanx tactic. I will draw the National Pride in the Cold War. National Pride being a very easy event to see it, with me really having quite a big culture lead at the moment. And then Binki will go for maybe quite a nice setup with Joan of Arc, has already a religion and soon might have both Theocracy and St. Peter's Basilica if he wants to, so he is not taking the coal. Let's see if maybe Grozz will go for a denial. And he will first of all go for the masonry, an interesting investment because he is quite low on science actually. So interesting that they are willing to go for that. But he has already a government form, so doesn't need to be saving up for that. He has some strong iron production, and there are a lot of strong wonders. So maybe they just were thinking about saving some civil actions on when maybe later on going for some H2 wonders. He will now finish the Great Wall, going up to 13 strength, takes the theology, and also plays the cultural heritage. Then we are at your turn with Grozz getting stronger. You are sadly the weakest now.
Yep, I'm not afraid to admit that I was also afraid to seed, and now is probably not a good time to push a strength event in for the strongest. And yeah, again, decided international agreement wasn't the best option to seed. It would make the strong get stronger, like the rich get richer. Not particularly helpful for myself. Um, so when we take a look at the current event deck, there's 2 cards still in the deck. We've got knowledge of one of those cards, and we know that it's a call to arms. So also probably not wise to start seeding and risk pushing that out as the weakest. So with this factored in, we decided grabbing selective breeding to help concentrate. Food would likely be required. So yeah, grabbing selective breeding to help concentrate on food for generating population could be critical further down the line. And then I can potentially kill 2 birds with 1 stone by developing team sports and building one straight away. Whilst taking the strength from Saladin, I now go from the weakest to the second strongest. This also fixes my happy face issues. So now hopefully I can just go to Winchester, wait for the call to arms for it all to just blow over. And for my last civil action, we felt taking Patriotism 1 would be the perfect choice, given that it offers an extra military action and some resources in what's now seeming like our opponents are developing into quite a threat, and we would need to be on our toes. So, taking Patriotism 1 also had the benefit of dropping the second copy of Selective Breeding down to 1 civil action for you. So not only was it a good pick for myself, it also saved you a civil action for a card that you would very much be looking for.
Yes, that's true.
And yeah, so at the end of my turn, I decided to keep one of my long-standing colony cards and discard the other. We decided to keep international agreement in case we could try and work it into the deck somehow as a seedable card. And then I drew a Age 2 colony card and the classic army tactic, which in my current situation with swordsman, if I could land cavalryman, so chasing more horses this game, if I could get those, it would be a great tactic for me in the classic army.
Yeah, so that's definitely a good card to have available. And yeah, also sometimes taking the strength with Saladin can be a bit redundant to prepare for the call to arms, because you basically lose the civil action by using Saladin for the strength. But there could be other strength events, and also of course the team games are zero sum. So with you not losing the civil action to the event, our opponents will now lose an additional civil action in case I will manage to reveal that event at my turn. We have a 50-50 shot. I seed the National Bride into the deck, and it's indeed a call to arms that is revealed, so both of our opponents will now lose some civil actions, which is certainly good news for us. I this turn certainly want to have the coal. I also certainly want to have the selective breeding. And then I have 3 civil actions left, and I don't have the most hand space. I could already develop something like coal, but maybe there is some benefit in potentially waiting for James Watt, also leaving me with enough science to go for a government form like Conmon at the next turn. So it's a question on how I want to invest my civil actions best. And at the end, we actually decided to go for the railroad here, which seems a bit ambitious for now, but it's maybe fine if I just finish it quite a bit later on, maybe at the end of H2. But then I think it has just some very big potential. I might have the ability to set up a really strong economy, and at the same time, it will help me with the strength, maybe making it easier to transition out of Yanshishka. So that was our decision here. Maybe something like Silk Road could also be an option with my low production, but just with having the coal and potentially also getting James Watt, I think the railroad has just some huge potential. Maybe one consideration could have also been to take Napoleon here, just to be a bit safer from the military, taking him away from our opponents. But James Watt just has a lot of potential here, and at least I will now have the strength from the railroad, hopefully at some point, and at the moment still Jan Žižka to help me with the strength. Then I will draw some cards, and same as you, I will get quite a useful tactic. I draw the Hussars tactic, which could make it quite a lot easier for me to transition out of Jan Žižka. So that will could have the potential to be a very useful draw here. Also, the economic progress could at some point be quite strong if I go for the railroad with coal. Binki this turn will finish the St. Peter's Basilica, also increasing his strength a little bit by that, with having Joan of Arc, increases his population, uses the ritual to go for 4th mine. I think I like that decision. The first copy of coal is gone. It could take quite a while until he can upgrade his resources, if he will even manage to upgrade them at all, and so he has a lot of population and can now increase his production like this. Then we are at Grozz's turn, and he actually goes for a war with technology against me. So Jan Žižka out of the sudden getting ward here, I was quite threatening for a while, but now the tides have turned, and Grozz will go for the war. He will use Barbarossa for another warrior, develops the theology. With that, he is able to fix his happy faces. He will go for Napoleon, elects him with that as an additional military action, is actually willing to destroy Lab, sacrificing some economy, going for another warrior, and now he has just 6 basic warriors, but with his 2 wonders, especially the Great Wall and also the Napoleon, that will lead to some very respectable amount of strength with 22. So maybe taking Napoleon away could have been a consideration for us. But yeah, I mean, at least Napoleon is only giving 2 strength. Barbarossa also could have still have some potential. We didn't know that they have a war already available, so that maybe is now in hindsight more possibility, but would have been maybe a hard decision to make with not knowing what cards and plans our opponents have. But now we will have to see how I will respond, be able to respond during my turn. But first of all, we are at your turn.
Yeah, so we looked at my politics phase and figured that if I seeded, I could maybe help you in a war, but it would be at the expense of pushing international agreement into the deck. So it was kind of a way up between seeding it into the deck, but probably helping Grozz in the long run. So Shock Horror, we decided not to seed, so I still haven't seeded by turn 9. maybe we can take a look, see at a later time whether anything would have been drawn out to help you. But I basically, with this strength push, and thankfully for myself, very selfishly, that I'm not the target of the war. I need to react. So, in needing to prepare my own military, taking Catherine to hand gives me culture and an additional military action, considering I've only got the two from despotism still. And then my copy of Cavalryman is on the row, so seemed a must grab here. Then upgrading a mine um, was also a good option. And then having sort of Catherine and cavalry removed from the road drops common to you for one civil action. It threatens my classic army tactic if they took note of it, and yeah, sets me up for a military push next turn, which I sadly don't have the capability to make this turn.
Yeah, I think
And
Catherine will just be quite helpful with the military action. But a little bit costly, I think a leader like Robespierre maybe also could have been interesting to get into a government form with your low signs, but at the moment I think we just have to be very careful, and every help for the military is very welcome.
yeah, I think we were kind of just pushed into this take. It removed any flexibility, I believe, with Grozz having declared a war on you and push strength. So at the end of my turn, I kept the Age 2 colony card and the classic army. And with my two draws, I actually drew another very viable tactic for myself in the defensive army. And keeping up with the colony draws, I drew Inhabited 2. So another teasing tactic for myself and another colony.
Yeah, so let's see if maybe we can do something with those H2 colonies, or if they also will be, or if they also will stay out of the deck. At my turn, again, we needed to think about if maybe we want to hope for something good, revealing something that could potentially help me in the war. The thing is, in economic progress, could be revealed a bit too early. That has some huge potential later on. Cold War at this point could also potentially backfire. It could be an event that really helps Grozz, who has still some very low science production, and Good Harvest also would be revealed quite quickly. So with not knowing whether something helpful is on top, we decided to pass on seeding here. And then, thanks to your turn, I will be able to take a constitutional monarchy for only one civil action. I have enough science to develop that, and to also actually go for the cavalryman. I had a little bit of luck with having the hussars tactic available. That will now be quite helpful. I can develop the cavalryman, and then I can disband something. I will go for the warrior, as I think, again, disbanding anything economical is just very costly, and losing the warrior will now only cost me one strength, as I will now switch to the hussars tactic, and then I can build a cavalryman, go for an upgrade, and reveal the hussars tactic going up to 18 strength. Still losing 4 science, which will be painful. I will only be at 1 science at the next turn. If I don't get help by a revolutionary idea, I will still in 2 turns not have enough science to go for coal, unless there will be James Watt to help me. And so certainly quite a disruptive war. Instead of maybe focusing on upgrading my economy, I have to respond. I have to do some big investments, but at least I have the Conmon running now, lots of civil and military actions. So hopefully I can maybe take some yellow cards at the next turns, and also this turn actually, so that I can get some additional value from that. And the yellow cards that I will take this turn are the Urban Growth, and then I have enough to take one of Efficient Upgrade and Breakthrough. Taking cannons, of course, could also be an option, but I think my situation, every additional yellow card is just extremely helpful. And I have the Hussars tactic, you have the Classic Army tactic, so maybe the cannons are not that much needed for us. You have also the Defensive Army tactic drawn, so we also have the knowledge that our opponents don't have that tactic available. And I think normally when we just take a look at my own position, the efficient upgrade looks like maybe the better card. I will need a lot of resources. I will have to do some expensive upgrades to coal and selective breeding. But the breakthrough, I think, also will be helpful for me because I will now lose a bunch of science. I will need to get into coal, selective breeding, maybe some other technologies. And while maybe the breakthrough is still a bit worse for me, I think it is still very useful. And then there's also the denial aspect. Both Binki and Grozz are on very low science production. I think getting 3 additional science is extremely helpful for them. And so here we decided on the breakthrough, but it's a very close call. The efficient upgrade could also be quite helpful, and maybe it could backfire not having the additional resource at a later turn, but the science also hopefully should turn out to be quite useful. And now at least I got up to 18 strength, but I will now lose 4 science, and it's certainly quite a bit disruptive, this war from Grozz. I draw the Civil Unrest, which could be a seedable card, Binky Seeds, and there would have been actually a helpful event for me on top with the new deposits. I maybe could have gone for 1 more upgrade if I would have been willing to destroy maybe a mine, then even 2 more upgrades. Then I would have enough military actions for that and could have had more strength. So interesting that they went for the war, even with knowing that that event is on top. But yeah, sadly, we both didn't see it, which I think was reasonable with the cards that we had in hand and having no knowledge whether something helpful is on top. But if we would have known that new deposits was on top, I think one of us certainly would have seeded. And then it's Binky's turn. He will take a copy of cannons, develops it actually immediately, drops very low in science now, takes Maria, and Maria I think will be quite useful for him. He both can use additional resources and science very nicely. He also has the fortifications tactic, so can make use out of the cannons and goes up to 17 strength. Then it's Grozz's turn. He sadly will steal 4 science from me, and having the additional science will, after he is seeding and opening the raiders, which at least I'm not part of, thanks to the additional science, he will now be able to go for the cannons. He has a free population, he builds a cannon, and with Napoleon out of the sudden, he is sitting at 28 strength, is getting 7 additional strength from the Great Wall, and is really looking quite threatening. Still will get 3 draws in this turn, and yeah, that we were quite worried about those developments, but on the other hand, we still have a bit of a culture lead. I still have some huge economical potential with my many civil actions, plus the potential of getting James Watt at some point. So so still everything could be turned around, but for now, Grozz is very threatening, and might also depend on what aggressive cards they will be drawing now, on how much they potentially can damage us. And then we are at your turn again. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just come
perfect.
back.
All right, perfect. So we are at your turn. Maybe we had a short connection issues, but no issue. We can continue.
Yeah, so if you're expecting me to seed and push one of these colonies in there, you're going to be greatly disappointed. We decided not to seed inhabited 2, and again, I'm not seeding, not entertaining any events. I obviously got hit by the raiders. We decided to lose the 2 food. It was no surprise either. It was sitting there teasing me at 3 food of 4 required to pop. So with the need arising to react, playing it. Yes, as I said, with the need to react, destroying a lab was a tough call. Electing Catherine gave another military action that I can use to disband a warrior, which gave me 2 free population. Then sadly, I had to commit a large amount of my science chunk into cavalryman before using all of my remaining military actions to double build 2 cavalrymen and then reveal the classic army tactic. This seemed pretty vital to defending at this stage and couldn't be passed up. Takes me to 22 strength. I also have the colony card for defense, but Himeji's castle stood it. This left me with one civil action left. It was a sort of a tough call, but we decided that so with my low science, Conmon seemed like it was quite ambitious, but I was struggling along with 4 civil actions for a while, so it might have been a hopeful pick to try and boost them nonetheless. We did discuss at this turn taking the Harvard College, but I'm probably not clever enough to go to college. And even though my economy was weak and I could really do with the additional science, especially having dropped to a +1. So, with my economy being particularly weak at the moment and having disbanded a lab, so dropping myself to only a +1 science per turn, it would have been a great help to take the Harvard College, but it seemed like a very greedy play that easily would have been punished had I not boosted the strength to a sufficient amount.
Yes.
And with the end of my turn, I've used all of my military actions, so I hold on to the same 3 cards I had before, which was the Age 2 colony card, defensive army in hand, which was now going to be irrelevant, and the inhabited territory too.
Yes, and I think the Harvard College would have been quite strong, but it also would have been the whole turn, and there is another strong wonder that maybe you could have a chance to get, which is the Ocean Liner. So now you are, for the moment, quite safe for the military, and maybe there are some chances that you could get the Ocean Liner service instead of the Harvard College. And then we are at my turn. I again will have to see if maybe I need to react to the strength push. I am not the weakest, and there is still the Reign of Terror in, and with that we decided it would be really good to seed here, and we both don't have any happy face issues at the moment, so the civil unrest seemed like the best event to seed. And I pushed that one into the deck. But unfortunately, the barbarians are revealed, and that event was quite annoying actually, because now I have to destroy something. If I destroy a mine, though, we will see it at the end of my turn, then I'm really missing that one resource for the next turn, and so at the end we actually decided to lose a farm here and having famine this turn. We can maybe at the end of the turn see why the resource that I would lose matters that much. It was still a very tough decision. I'm will now lose a bit of culture. At least we have a bit of a culture lead, so maybe it's somewhat acceptable, but a bit unfortunate that the barbarians are revealed and not the Reign of Terror, especially because Binki soon could maybe get stronger, which then would mean that the Reign of Terror would also again cost us a population. I will start by taking the Engineering Genius. I think for you it could have been an option to take the Engineering Genius instead of the Conmon. As for you, maybe a revolution into Republic could be the best way to get a government form going. But on the other hand, I really need every additional resource that I can get, so the Engineering Genius will be extremely helpful for me now, finishing the railroad as quickly as possible. So I will take the Engineering Genius. And I can also take the rich land, but now I have some hand space issues. Having lost the science from the war, I can't develop any technology, and I also can't use any of those yellow cards. So the only way how I can use some civil actions is to actually build some steps of the railroad. And I could have maybe also gone for some upgrades from Knight to Cavalryman, but I think it's now important to just invest every resource that I have into the railroad, which also hopefully soon will help me with the strength. The good news is at least that I have some colonization cards in hand, so I'm actually not in danger of an aggression, which is good. And now, with the Engineering Genius, I can finish the railroad at the next turn, leaving me with one resource, and that one resource is extremely vital, because I think if James Watt is in the row at the next turn, which is definitely not a given, and our opponents might not take that many cards from the row, but it's a possibility, and if he is in the row at the next turn, then thanks to having one resource left, I can go for one coal upgrade with the Ridgeland, with James Watt, in addition to finishing the railroad, which would give me a huge resource boost, and because of that it was quite a tough decision to decide on what to lose for the barbarians, because losing the farm is quite bad. But with losing the miner, I lose the possibility of the James Watt play. But on the other hand, James Watt being in the row at the next turn is not a given. But if he is not in the row, then I still have produced an additional resource now, and I might then be able to fix my famine issues with going for selective breeding, for example, which would not be ideal, because ideally I would also go for that with James Watt, but hopefully it will only be one famine turn, and I think the potential of James Watt being on the row and I am being able to go for the railroad and coal at the next turn, being stabilized in strength somewhat with the railroad, and then getting a huge economical boost, that power. It would be so powerful that I think it might be worth it now accepting one turn of famine in order to have this possibility for the next turn. Yeah, but certainly not an ideal turn, losing a farm, wasting at the end 2 civil actions because of hand space issues. At least the engineering genius I can use at my next turn, giving me the hand space to take James Watt in case he should be on the row. Then I will draw some cards, also sadly lose some culture to the famine at the end of my turn. I get a Napoleonic army, but for now the hussars should be best for me. Also I draw the strategic territory too. Binki doing a very interesting decision here. He actually does an extremely late revolution to Theocracy, but I mean he has St. Peter's Basilica, the happy face from Theocracy will be doubled, and yeah, also having more military actions, my happy faces will make it that he maybe more easily can go for something military heavy, maybe even an indicator that he has potentially even some payoff cards in hand already. So an interesting choice, not something that you see any day. Theocracy revolution in the middle of H2, but it could turn out to be quite strong for him. And sadly now I'm the weakest, which could mean that I could get hit by the Reign of Terror. Also, Grozz is trying an infiltrate against me. That would cost me the Transcontinental Railroad, which I definitely want to avoid losing, so I will use all of the defense cards that I have in order to defend. And Grozz will now go for the Harvard College. Not great to see, because I think that helps him a lot for his economy. Maybe you taking it at the turn before could have been considered also because of denial reasons, but it just also would have been yeah, quite bad. Maybe Grozz would have then gone for the infiltrate against you and would have just taken the Harvard College away from you. So I think it was still maybe the right choice, even though Grozz, of course, profits now quite heavily from the Harvard College. Then we are at your turn, and for the politics action, you will do actually some damage to me.
Yeah, sadly, not the ideal use of Catherine's ability, considering the expansionist effort takes a yellow token from yourself and Binky. It ends up being a small win for us at some expense, however, because having taken one from each of you, I do get one myself. But we didn't see a better time to probably use it, and trading it was quite nice. The turn wise, we looked at sort of two lines here. The Louvre seemed like a good culture building turn, or grabbing Republic for 3 with the plan to do a revolution into it at the next turn. That fixed my low civil actions with low science cost as well, which would be would sort of fix the pain I've been in for a while. So when deciding those two, maybe it factored in with the recent sort of robbery at the Louvre. Not sure whether I'd get as much culture, and whether they'd let me put blue tokens on the card. You'll have to ask Vlada for that one, whether he'd patched that or not. But we decided that Republic seemed like the miles better choice, especially as the civil actions gave me more flexibility for potentially gaining additional food, taking yellows, for example. So we took the Republic for 3, and then with the last civil action, the Frugality 2 seemed like a good pick also, because it seemed like I was going to need population if I was to keep up with what seems like a strong war machine that Grozz was amassing.
Yeah, so I think,
And then,
yeah, I think for The Louvre, of course, maybe could give you something to invest into, but both our opponents have some strong military setup, and I think, especially also with Grozz getting some additional draws with the Colossus, if we don't manage to get our economy in track in order to reach high strength numbers in H3, we could have some big issue here.
Yeah, definitely. It was a slightly greedier play, but I have a lot of resources stockpiled, and we kind of do need a way to spend them as well.
No, no. And then you will get some new draws at the end of your turn.
Yeah, so I held on to. Well, I just get 3 draws, so I've still got my initial 3 cards, and then I draw the spy, autonomous territory. So I draw another territory, and the independence declaration, so the ability to take one away.
Yeah, so that Independence Declaration could be a somewhat safe event to seed, at least for now, with none of us having any colony. And at my turn, we had a very tough decision to make for the politics action, because one event, there are still 2 events in there, and we actually have knowledge about both of them. One of which is the Reign of Terror, the other one are the Reds. And yeah, I mean, if I now don't see it, I can finish the railroad. I get a bit stronger than Binki, and then maybe we could have a chance to avoid the Reign of Terror. But if our opponents see that we both are not seeding and that we both have knowledge about the remaining events, they could figure out that maybe a strength event is coming. Binki maybe could just skip his politics phase and can easily, with Maria, increase his population and build another cannon. And because of that, it could just be huge if I see it and actually open the Reds, which would hurt Binki quite a bit. Not being able to use Maria for maybe 2 more turns potentially, maybe even 3 more even potentially. So that could be quite big. And then maybe Binky could still disband a warrior to go for another cannon, so could also still get stronger for the Reign of Terror. But with them seeing that we were actually willing to see it while being the weakest and Grozz the strongest, maybe they aren't suspecting any strength events that much. Maybe the chances are a bit higher that Binky would just seed anyway and then actually get hit by the Reign of Terror after my turn. So I think, yeah. But if the Reign of Terror is on top, I of course will lose it. I have no free population. I would probably now this turn have to lose a mine. But then again, if I don't see it and maybe Binky gets stronger, then you would be weakest. You also don't have a free population. You are generally low in population, same as I. So then that would be quite bad for you. So it was a very tough choice, but we felt like the game is maybe developing into a bit of a dangerous direction. You now being very low in science, it will be tough to fix the things that you still need to improve. While I'm still waiting on James Swat. Sadly, James Swat isn't revealed this turn yet, which would have been quite big, and so I think taking a bit of a risk is maybe with the potential for a nice reward is maybe the right call of actions. I see the economic progress. Sadly, we don't win the coin toss here, and the Reign of Terror is revealed. I will lose another population. This time, the resource is still, of course, extremely useful, but not as important as it was in the turn before. So it was a somewhat acceptable risk of losing this mine this turn, but still definitely not ideal. This turn I can then finish the railroad using the engineering genius, making a bit of space in my hand, and then in order to avoid famine I can go for the selective breeding, again making space in my hand. Otherwise I still would have had trouble using my civil actions to take some cards. Not ideal, because it would have been better to go for the selective breeding with James Watt. Also, yeah, being able to go for a coal upgrade this turn would have just been extremely big. And now that I have lost a mine, I have lost a bit of flexibility, because if I would have been at 3 mines now, I would have 4 resource at the next turn, meaning I have enough to go for coal upgrade with James Watt, if hopefully he will be available for me at the next turn. And then I could maybe take 2 yellow cards like Patriotism and Urban Growth, or Patriotism and Frugality or something. Now I'm a bit more limited in my choices if I want to be able to go for a coal upgrade at the next turn, which I think I really want to do. 2. And with that, I at the end just took the efficient upgrade, which also is a helpful card for me that I will maybe use very quickly, hopefully at the next turn when I will have a chance to get James Watt. And yeah, but civilization is not looking ideal. Very few workers, only one farm, 2 mines, but at least with James Watt there's the hope of still boosting my economy quite a bit, and with the economic progress maybe then having a lot of resources and hopefully also food to work with. So that was the turn, and I will get some draws now. I don't get any new colonization card, but thanks to the 5 military actions, I'm still able to defend against Grozz. Now it's Binki's turn. Sadly, he doesn't see it, so the rats don't affect him. He will increase his population, builds another cannon, is now at 28 strength, takes the urban growth, the frugality, and also the patriotism. And is actually disbanding already a warrior at this turn, which is interesting. Maybe he plans on doing that anyway and wants to now rather lose an H2 instead of an H3 military action. Could also be an indicator with him having now the patriotism that he could maybe have a war or something in hand. He could declare a war, play the patriotism, and now that he is disbanded, the warrior can increase his population and build 2 more cannons with having now the free population of the warrior already. So that could be a sign, but maybe also just wants to have the population somewhere else, like maybe another lab or something to get some more economy going. Grozz seeds and opens the red, so now our opponents will still lose some more food than us, but maybe the hit against them could have been even a bit harder if reds would have been revealed at my turn. But again, 10 food lost combined by our opponents is still a bit of a loss for them. Grozz now can't increase his population this turn, will go for Rifleman, will go for quite a bunch of upgrades. At least we have the knowledge that the defensive army tactic isn't available for them, but nonetheless, Grozz is sitting at 34 strength now, which is quite a lot of strength. And again, we have to maybe follow up at our next turns. Grozz then also takes the journalism, maybe having an option to go for a bit more culture and science production if they aren't getting the right payoff cards for the military. Then we are at your turn, and there's a historical moment now because there is actually something interesting happened during your politics phase. You're actually capable of seeding an event here.
Yeah, so we initially discussed a no seed from both of us as we were both the weakest, but then we decided a double seed would be best to give us some more knowledge, or most knowledge of the event deck, potentially National Pride coming out faster, and our position probably wouldn't change from the from weakest positions. So it was best to get cards in the deck. So I seeded the Independence Declaration as my my maiden seed on round 12, and I revealed the freedom of movement. So, with economic progress coming and corruption being kind of inevitable this turn, the use of freedom of movement into potentially moving a farm into cavalrymen seemed less viable. So then we questioned whether the Republic revolution plans were the best option, but we had a long discussion about the need for population and how it was going to be very important coming into H3. So with the ocean liner service dock in the row, we figured that the fact that food was scarce for me, the government plans were then put on hold, and I was to take the ocean liner service for 3 of my 4 civil actions. Then, with the last civil action, decided that we probably needed to get it going rather sharpish. So I built 1 step of the ocean liner service, which still kept me into corruption anyway, but would potentially set up for a revolution the following turn, which was initially the plans for this turn. And with that, I kept the colony card, the inhabited 2, and the autonomous territory, and drew the popularization of science, emigration, and the acceptance of supremacy pact.
Yeah, so I think, of course, doing the revolution as quickly as possible would be somewhat preferable, or would be quite strong, but then you are low on science, and if you don't get any revolutionary ideas, won't be able to get into selective breeding soon. And I think if you want to survive in H3, you soon need to be able to go for maybe a second classic army tactic, and that's why I think this ocean liner service is just so too important to pass on, even though it delays the Republic. And at the next turn again, it will be the question: finishing the ocean liner or doing a Republic revolution. But ideally, in 2 turns, you will have a lot of civil actions and at least a population income, and maybe that will help you survive. And for my turn, as you said, we were both now willing to cede. The one event that we didn't have knowledge of, the freedom of movement, we were happy to see, because we thought maybe there could be a strength event coming, but now the freedom of movement was revealed and the other event was ceded by me, the National Pride. I will push the Ravages of Time into the deck, as maybe with you having team sports, you can it can be fine for you losing the Happy Face from the Stonehenge. I will lose the library. Probably Binki gets hit by the hardest by losing the Roman roads. For Grozz, it's probably fine losing the Colossus, but we just wanted to push. We have now 4 out of 6 events in the next event deck, and pushing a lot of events just also gives some culture, and with knowing now that that there are not many bad events in the next event deck, we can maybe just continue seeding and add a little bit of additional culture to our position like this. So I seed, and the National Pride is revealed. And this turn, finally, James Watt is available. He maybe took a little bit too long, but he is now at least available for 1 civil action, and I finally can go into coal. I got the coal already quite early in H2, but our opponents went for quite a disruptive play, and so it took quite a while. But James Watt can always help you doing a bit of a quick economical development, which can be quite strong, and can allow for a bit of comeback. And with James Watt, I will now be able to go for 1 coal upgrade. But there was also the freedom of movement to be resolved at the beginning of my turn. And first we thought, it might be a bit difficult to do something with it. But then there's an interesting idea, because I will now actually use it to put a bronze mine into an agriculture, leaving me with only 1 mine, which is of course really not ideal. But if I now go for a coal upgrade with the efficient upgrade, I'm still at 6 resource production, despite only being at 1 mine, thanks to the railroad, which is maybe fine for now. And having the additional farm is quite strong, because with 2 resources, if I would have kept a mine, I would not have enough resources to go for another upgrade immediately. However, now that the population is sitting at the farm, I actually have enough resources to go for a farm upgrade, which gives me more economical value immediately, allows me to increase my population at the next turn, and also allows me to just use 1 more civil action already this turn, because after taking the 2 reserves, which I will do at the end of my turn, there wasn't really the greatest use for the last civil action. So before having that idea, we really struggled on what I should actually do with that, but now I can very nicely use the civil action to upgrade that farm. And I soon would like to rebuild. If I would have stayed with 1 farm, I soon would like to go for a second farm anyway, so now I can maybe just rebuild the mine at my next turn when I now get a population from the selective breeding. So I think that was quite a nice way of using the freedom of movement, and now I'm sitting at 4 food, 6 resource production. My economy is actually looking quite fine. But I'm quite a bit behind in strength, and it could be that I get hit by an aggression, or potentially also by a war. So we were really hoping now that nothing too bad is happening at our opponent's turn, and then my economy is actually quite good, and could maybe allow me to go for better and more respectable amount of strength soon. I will draw some cards, Iconoclasm, Crime Wave, and Politics of Strength. H3 starts. And sadly, Binki has a war with territory. As I said, disbanding the warrior the turn before maybe was already a sign of that. He declares the war, plays the patriotism, and then builds a cannon. Takes actually the strategy in hand, interestingly, the revolutionary idea, and then is now 38 strength. And I will have to see how nicely I can defend against that war. And things are even getting a bit worse for me because Grozz is now going for a blunder against me, making it even harder for me to actually defend properly for in that war, and also getting additional food and resources for himself. So that was quite a big blow, and at my turn we will have to see how good I will be able to respond to that war. Grozz will use the freedom of movement to put a warrior into theology. Binki moved the Grozz into a cannon, which helped him completing the third tactic. Grozz will go for the military theory, both of them making sure that they will stay on the aggressive side. Binki taking strategy, Grozz taking the military theory, and that's certainly looking quite dangerous. He will go for another upgrade, is now at 33 strength. And then we are at your turn.
Yeah, so on my turn, I was getting carried away, nearly got a nosebleed by the prospect of seeding emigration into the deck, which then revealed Vast 2. So the idea of seeding was to try and push economic progress out for assistance in your war, which sadly didn't happen, but we did reveal Vast 2. After some discussion, we decided that it'd be better if I passed on it, as it was too expensive and quite costly for me to lose the population, and you were to bid on it.
Yeah, I bid 7, meaning that I was actually willing to send an army there, but I can then rebuild my population as cavalryman, but the bid also mostly had to do with just making that colony more expensive for our opponents. In that case, Grozz, who has a very big colonization bonus, so we just wanted to ideally achieve that. They have to at least pay a little bit of an additional price, and if I somehow should manage to win this colony, I still can somehow play around it, and the additional yellows would be somewhat helpful for me. But here the plan was rather to just push the price, as if I should win the colony, it could be quite bad, because the Independence Declaration is actually coming, where I would then be in danger of. So Grozz wins the colony, at least has to send one H3 colonization card away, but getting that colony for just a warrior I think is extremely strong for him. And then at your turn, I think it was again the big decision between revolution or finishing the ocean liner. So what were our thoughts, or how do you remember this turn?
Yeah, so it was the same scenario as the previous turn, whether we weigh up the value of the additional population from finishing the ocean liner service, or those in government not happy about a double delay into a revolution into republic. And when we discussed it, we decided that going for the revolution into republic was quite important as we move into age 3. So the extra civil actions kept things a little bit brighter for myself moving into age 3.
Yeah, and for example, if the 3 additional civil actions that you have at the next turn, thanks to the revolution, if it maybe just allows you to grab a reserves 3 for 3 civil action, then that reserves can already help you as well with the population. So 3 civil actions can just do a lot, and can maybe help you getting some yellows, which are also revolutionary ideas, which could be extremely important.
Yeah. So at the end of my turn, we kept the age 2 colony card, autonomous territory, popularization of science. And then my draws were a plunder, the war over culture. So that was a war taken away from our opponents, and an age 3 colony card.
Yeah, so that colony card could be quite helpful to potentially defend against an aggression later on. And then it's my turn, and as you said, we were trying to push out an economic progress, which would be extremely helpful for me in the war. It would allow me to increase my population without needing to play reserves. I would have more resource available. So we pushed here, and we pushed the iconoclasm into the deck, which we will at least not have knowledge about. And also we thought that at my turn it could be an idea to actually go for Marie Curie and replacing James Watt very quickly to get some more value out of an H3 leader very early, and so the Iconoclasm hopefully will be a somewhat fine event. And sadly, no economic progress. Instead, the civil unrest is revealed, which affects no one. And then I think the defense this turn, it's relatively clear what is best. There's a copy of Professional Sports available for me, which allows me to go for 3 additional strength very cheaply, as I have the Urban Growth. And additionally, the additional happy faces will be very useful, because I sadly will lose 2 yellow tokens to Binki. I can't really do anything about that. And then when I lose the yellows, I would have some happy face issues. So now having those professional spots and the additional happy faces will help me in not having any big uprising issues, and also will free up it will free up some population that I can maybe put elsewhere. So I think that just is very helpful. Then I can also go for Marie Curie. There was the consideration to not go for her, but she will boost my science production immediately, my culture production immediately. At the moment, it seems unrealistic that I will build an additional farm or mine with James Watt in the next few turns. Of course, there could be the hope of an early oil, but yeah, I think Marie Curie just electing her also will give me a bit of additional strength and generate some useful benefits. And then I have 1 civil action left, which I can use to play the reserves, which then gives me enough resources to upgrade both knights to cavalrymen, putting myself at 30 strength, at least making sure to only lose 2 and not 3 yellow tokens, and to be at an amount of strength where maybe our opponents, and especially Binki, or Binky hopefully won't try an aggression against me. I mean, he might then go against you, which is also not great, but you at least actually have the chance to defend, while I at the moment don't have any colonization card in hand. And yeah, so that was my defense turn. I think somewhat straightforward, but now losing 2 yellow tokens, certainly not great. And let's see if maybe in the next few turns we can somewhat stabilize in the strength. I will draw 2 cards, the first H3 cards at the end of my turn, and one of them is a seedable impact, which is great, the impact of happiness. Then it's Binky's turn, and yeah, at his turn we, after he steals 2 yellow tokens, had to face a very challenging decision, because Binky plays a raid against your civilization, and as you can see, we actually decided to let that one through, but that wasn't an easy decision at all. I guess you still remember that one.
Oh yeah, it was a very tough one for me to take. We discussed it, weighed up a lot, ran some numbers. Basically, I could defend against Binky. I wouldn't be able to defend against Grozz, and then we needed to weigh up the likelihood, well, the damage versus potential damage in the next round. So the resources were obviously great for Binky if we let the raid through. However, losing a population to sacrifice would have been very costly. And I know what you're all thinking. What are the odds of Grozz having drawn a aggression? Well, I've ran the numbers for you. So Grozz has drawn 5 age 3 cards thanks to his Colossus, and he's got 2 age 2 cards in hand. Spy and Annex were the only 2 cards unaccounted for on our behalf, so our knowledge was quite vast. This left Spy being kind of useless, and Annex wasn't going to affect me much. And we had knowledge of the plunder that I had in my hand gone from age 3 when evaluating the calculations. So we take into consideration that there's 51 cards in the deck. Grozz draws 3 immediately from Colossus. His target aggressions are 9 aggressions from age 3, and he's got 5 draws. Given that he draws 2 aggressions, he's given that we've drawn 2 aggressions, and you haven't one as well. He's now shooting for 7 cards. So when we factor this in, he draws 3 cards from 51, looking for any one of the seven aggressions. Then he draws 2 from the 47 remaining, hoping for any one of the 7. So this works out at 55.39% chance that he's landed an aggression. So given the fact that he used an age 2 plunder previously instead of an age 3, there's potential that he doesn't have one, right? Or we're not entirely sure because only he knows. And it's a decision we deliberated on for a very long time. I slept on it. We believe that the right call in the end was to concede and not risk an aggression based on those odds. So we actually let it through, and maybe we'll share with you at the end of the game, or if you want to do it now, the outcome of that. But we decided that conceding was best, despite my pride telling me I didn't want to.
Yeah, I mean, normally it's not something that you really want to do, not defending when you have the chance to, especially because the rate is actually quite damaging. I think the reasoning why here it is actually viable has a lot to do with the loss of a population through sacrificing as actually being quite painful as well. Maybe even for yourself similarly painful than losing the arena. Of course, you have to rebuild the arena now, losing 5 resources and a civil action, but you also would need to rebuild a swordsman, losing 3 resources and a military action. And with sacrificing, you would lose the population, and you will need a lot of population to be able to defend yourself. So if we knew that Grozz or if Grozz wouldn't be a threat, if he would be low in strength and there wouldn't be a danger of a follow-up aggression, then I think it would still be the right call to defend. But now there's just a danger of sacrificing, which is also quite a big cost, and then getting hit by an aggression anyway. Now you don't sacrifice, and against Grozz you actually have you are able to defend without needing to sacrifice. So if Grozz now tries an aggression, you have you didn't get hit by one and you didn't need to sacrifice. But yeah, it was a very difficult choice to make because Binki gets now 4 additional resources, and with him being on bronze mines, those are extremely helpful for him. And yeah, so I was not really certain at the end what was actually right, but my gut feeling told me that losing the population could have some really big consequences here. And with there being an over 50% chance that Grozz has an aggression that he could follow up on, it could just be that you get hit by one anyway, and you in addition have sacrificed the population. Yeah, but now the aggression goes through. After the game, Grozz has shared that in this point he had actually an armed intervention in hand, so could have gone for a follow-up aggression, one that didn't affect your economy in any way, which is maybe that point relevant, but still it would have been a culture loss. So now Binki now can use the additional resources to go for the coal. At least the additional resources don't make a difference whether he can go for an additional coal upgrade, but he can now he can now actually go for building an additional mine. Interestingly, goes up to 4 mines, drops a bit down in strength to 36. Also still takes that relatively late scientific method in hand. Then Grozz seeds and opens the Ravages of Time, which he will now lose the Colossus, which I guess is quite fine for him. For Binki, it will be a bit of a bigger loss with him losing the Rome roads. Grozz goes for building 2 cannons, and he will take the Revolutionary Idea, which makes a lot of sense. Also, Albert Einstein, interestingly, has the journalisms in hand, can maybe hope to get either computers and multimedia. And then at the end of his turn, he actually reveals the entrenchments tactic, which was not really great to see. He is already at 43 strength, and with the tactic he has just some huge strength potential in H3. He has the military theory already in hand, and that could just be quite bad. And I think we need to hope from now on that maybe he doesn't draw any H3 war, because otherwise he could potentially punish us quite heavily. And after those developments, we are now at your turn.
Yeah, so back to maintaining the status quo, no seed for me. And then Savages of Time getting slapped by Ravages of Time meant that I'm losing Stonehenge and basically making it into its current state. So that was the preferred outcome for Ravages of Time. Then it was very important this round to finish the ocean liner service for the free population. Then grabbing both copies of Reserves 3 seemed really important also, especially considering Grozz has just revealed quite a nasty looking tactic, and strength wise, I'm still going to need to push and try and secure at least a second army. So building cavalryman, swordsman, and then rebuilding my destroyed arena was very, very much vital for maintaining strength and order within the civilization.
Yeah,
so at the end of
I think this turn was very straightforward with the two reserves and the ocean liner service and the arena.
Yeah, I don't think there was a lot of discussion about the turn. This one, I think it was it was definitely a very defensive play. And for my draws, I held on to H2 and H3 colony cards, the autonomous territory, and I drew the impact of variety.
Yeah, so maybe giving you potentially the option to seed, even though variety doesn't look too great for us at the moment. Also, with you building 2 more units, you are now not in corruption, meaning if an economic progress is revealed, you could actually gain 6 additional resources of it. And actually, the same is true for myself at the moment as well. So with that, we decided to push the impact of happiness into the deck, with the hope that maybe now the economic progress could be revealed. Sadly, it's still not revealed and remains in the deck for a little bit longer. Instead, the independence declaration is revealed, which at least doesn't do any damage to us. With taking both copies of reserves, the air forces drop down to 2 civil actions for me, and with us being still in danger from the military, especially now with Grozz having revealed the entrenchments tactic, I think that's a must grab for us. Then I still have some civil actions left. It's a bit tricky for me to spend those effectively this turn. I can increase my population, and then ideally I just want to save up some resources, because if I don't build anything, I can maybe just build 2 air force at the next turn. I could maybe build something in order to get more strength and be more likely to defend against an aggression, but especially with you having conceded against the aggression from Binki, maybe I would rather go against you anyway, so I can maybe not commit into any direction and just leave my resources available to go for potentially even 2 air force at the next turn. And then I have 4 civil actions left, and one of them I will spend on taking the satellites, which helps for a lot of impacts and also could help me getting a bit of additional strength going potentially. And then we considered, I could of course take a bunch of technologies, but I think most of them are a bit unrealistic. I could take modern infantry or rockets to be prepared for some H3 tactics, but I think a transition would be quite costly. I could take modern infantry away from Binki, but him going for entrenchments also would take quite a while, and at the moment he doesn't really have the science for any new military techs. And so at the end we thought about both computers and efficient upgrade. Computers, of course, with Marie Curie could be quite nice for me, but if I take computers without the efficient upgrade, it just felt like investing 5 resources into such an upgrade, even though it actually gives me 2 additional strength with Marie, might just be a bit too greedy, as I might just need as many resources as possible to build more Hussars army, or at least to threaten them. Taking computers still could be vital, because Binki has the chance to take Bill Gates, but he doesn't have enough science to go for computers for now. Maybe could go for scientific methods instead. But also Grozz has Einstein in hand, but also he has the journalism. So I think both of our opponents have ways on playing some good turns without the computers. Maybe one of them will still go for them, but at the end it felt better to take the efficient upgrade. If the computers maybe make it through to my next turn, I can then go for an upgrade very cheaply without it being greedy. and or I can hope for the second copy. And if I don't get a chance to get into computers, then it could also be an idea to at some point build a second arena as a bread and circuses and then upgrade it with the efficient upgrade to also get some additional strength from that. And with that additional option, instead of just using it for a potential computer upgrade, I think the efficient upgrade should be a somewhat fine card and could be part of helping me going to an amount of strength where I can defend myself. And then at the end of my turn, I will draw some cards. 2 packed, sadly, not the ideal draw, but at least another seedable impact with the impact of Wonders. Binki seeds an impact into the deck. Now the economic progress is revealed, so you gain 6 additional resources. Sadly, after my turn, I only gain 4 instead of 6, but still we gain, I mean, it's a relatively similar amount that is gained by both teams here. Binki can now increase his population. Actually, he doesn't use the frugality, which probably has to do something with getting out of corruption. He will now go for Bill Gates, doesn't take computers, instead just goes for scientific method immediately, which I think makes sense. And then he also takes the modern infantry in hand, which maybe allows him at some point to go for entrenchment tactic. Also makes it maybe that the air forces fall down to 2 civil actions for Grozz. And then it's Grozz's turn, and he goes for blunder against you, and also partly thanks to not defending against the aggression from Binki at the turn before, you actually are now still able to defend against that aggression. So while you had to sacrifice the losses, at least you can now defend against that aggression, but for that aggression you also need to sacrifice a swordsman, which is expensive, but here at least we know that there is no immediate follow-up aggression, so I think here definitely should be the right choice to defend against that. And then Grozz will increase his population, builds an additional cannon, is now already at 56, strength will drop a little bit because he is going for Einstein. And then he will not go for journalism, instead just goes for computers, which will give him a big science boost. Maybe we should have taken the copy away. I think that is looking quite strong for him now. He takes the mechanized agriculture, is now at 11 science production. So maybe the efficient upgrade is also not doing that much. On the other hand, for me, that maybe computers denial could be justified. On the other hand, the use of upgrading an arena could still result in additional strength for me. So let's see how the efficient upgrade will work out for me at the end. And then we are at U-turn again. Interestingly, Grozz didn't take the air forces.
Yeah, so back to my turn. I've got 1 card in hand. We know it's the autonomous territory because I had to use both my defense cards as well as my swordsman to defend. Could have seeded autonomous territory. Grozz has got the bonus for it. However, if he's gearing up for military, he probably wouldn't want to spend those units. But decided not to defend because I'm stronger than Binki, or I can get stronger than Binki, and I can effectively try and blag it as a defense card and potentially try and defend with it, but we decided it was just not worth seeding. So for my turn, I played reserves, the first copy of reserves 3 for food, then popped using frugality, which then gives me another 4 food to double pop. Use the ocean liner service to increase my population, means I've got 3 spare workers that I can then put into cavalryman and 2 into swordsman to push my strength. Then I can take patriotism 3 for 2 and air forces for 2. I've effectively now got 2 classic armies. And even though air forces, I'm probably not going to have the science to use, considering I'm not actually producing any science. It felt wrong to leave it to our opponents at this point because you had a copy already. Grozz in particular, with enough science to develop it, a very good army in his entrenchments tactic, and having Harvard College meant that he could potentially get a war off already using it, or become particularly dangerous and keep pushing strength. So it was discussed about leaving Air Forces, but it just didn't feel right, and we couldn't ignore it. So felt that at best the denial pick. I'm probably not going to get into it, but we just couldn't leave it.
Yeah,
So
I think it's probably the correct choice. I mean, the consideration I think was that maybe Binki, with being on fortifications, could just be fine without air forces, and then he can let the copy the last one through to Grozz. But I mean, there's always the hope that the last copy could be quite late and they have a bit of uncertainty. And if we are lucky, maybe it stays in the deck for very long. And at this point, we maybe have to hope that they don't get any big war going. And I think the hopes of that are definitely increased with us leaving the hope open, and that maybe the Air Forces will now be too late for Grozz.
yeah, and to conclude my turn, I used all three of my military actions, so I didn't draw any cards, and I have the lonely autonomous territory in my hand.
Yeah, so then we are at my turn, and I think at this turn I didn't seed an event. Maybe I could have pushed Impact of Wonders, which is a somewhat neutral one. I think one of the reasons why we didn't push is, first of all, I will get stronger, so maybe there's a chance of avoiding a strength event potentially. And also, if we move the deck forward now, the Iconoclasm that I've seeded earlier could be revealed quicker, which could cause loss of Catherine for you. So maybe now slowing the deck a little bit down with the events that I have in hand not being the greatest ones could be the right call. And on this turn I will go for Air Forces, making myself a bit better prepared to defend myself. I can build one Air Force going up to 39. And then there's the question, do I even go for a second Air Force? I could now also actually build an arena, maybe build a bread and circuses and upgrade it with the efficient upgrade. But maybe with me going for another Air Force, I could even put a bit of pressure on Binki now, maybe turning the tides a little bit, because at his turn, his next population will be unhappy. He doesn't have enough food, even with the frugality, to get two more population out. So if he wants to build another army, maybe, then that could cost him some distraction. Maybe he can spare some of those bronze mines anyway, but maybe I can just put a little bit of pressure on him. Also, maybe I will now, I think, take the patriotism, so with the additional military action from that, and having exactly 9 signs, if there are tanks on the road the next turn, I could threaten to go for war, building 2 more tanks, which would also make me a bit threatening. So with that play of going for 2 air forces, I think he both has to maybe be worried about an aggression and a war, and maybe now we finally can force our opponents now to react a little bit to us. So um, maybe Binky is not really that much in danger, but still it could affect his turn a little bit. And so we were willing to build a second Air Force. I then also take another copy of efficient upgrade. Maybe not ideal. It's will be questionable if I will be able to use both of the copies that I have in hand now, but especially if I maybe get a chance to get into computers still, I could go for some very cheap upgrades, and hopefully I also won't have any too big hand space issues. So I at the end took that in hand instead of maybe just letting the civil action float. Also with the consideration to take some more cards from the row, because if maybe we could just make it to end the game 1 turn earlier, that could really increase our chances of not getting punished by a big war from Grozz at some point. And now, at the end of my turn, I will keep the impact, some H2 events, and I will draw 2 more impacts. Impact of technology, probably good to know that it is not in the deck, while for impact of architecture, if we both maybe go for some more arenas, it could turn out to be a seedable impact for us. Now it's Binky's turn, he seeds an impact, the developed territory is revealed, and we both can't really that easily bid on that, we both would lose a lot of strength. with losing a tactic, and at this point maybe the colony is not doing that much for us, so maybe we could have bid a little bit to make Binky pay a bit more, but yeah, it would have been just a bit risky. But we weren't too happy to see that colony, because what I said about Binky maybe having to destroy something in order to keep up the strength is sadly, after he wins that colony, not true any longer. He sends a knight away, and now he can actually increase his population twice, and actually both population that he is getting are happy, meaning he can very easily go for the strategy, build 2 more cannons, and being at 48 strength, so isn't in danger of any aggression or wars at all. Goes for 1 more upgrade, can threaten another army at the next turn, and also takes an urban growth. And yeah, but he at the moment can actually only go for 1 more army, so if I would have a war, I think it could still be a bit threatening. Sadly, I don't have a war available for me, so uh, even if there are tanks, I can't go for one, which maybe could have actually turned out to be a small war if there isn't any help from the small win in the war, if there isn't any other help in the event deck for Binky. Then it's Grozz's turn. He will go for an armed intervention against you. Um, and with that has for the moment even overtaken you in culture. He will then go for the military theory and for the mechanized agriculture, scoring some culture with Einstein while developing those technologies, upgrades his food production, but also just wants to get an additional population immediately by disbanding the other farm. Putting in the 2 cannon is now at 61 strength. The 3rd Air Force isn't in the row for now, which is good for us. And then we are at your turn.
Yeah, so my position here is not ideal, and as such, leads to a tricky turn and some decisions ahead. Again, didn't want to cede the autonomous territory, so it seemed like playing the reserves 3 for food, just so I can increase my population and take the free pop from Ocean Liner service, gave me 2 additional population to work with. Building a swordsman uh, seemed like a good play here. Pushing strength slightly and then taking reserves 3 again for 3 civil actions to give myself some more resources to play with was a good shout. And then for 1 civil action, we decided that I would take multimedia. Now, this turn's not ideal because it leaves me with famine, so I'm going to lose the 4 culture, which at this point I think we were trying to weigh up how close the game was and whether it was better to do that than sort of keep myself vulnerable. And yeah, as such, decided that we would take famine for this turn.
Yeah, so definitely a very tough turn. I think building the swordsman also a big reason in order to do that, and instead of maybe building a farm to avoid famine, is that one of the H2 events coming is the iconoclasm, and if I, for example, will now seed, and I think we need to get some culture through seeding, and I have the impact of wonders that I can push. But our opponents, of course, could seed an event as well. And if Catherine is removed from you and you lose the military action, then if you don't build a swordsman now, even with having patriotism, you don't have enough military actions to actually threaten another army, which yeah, could be quite bad. Grozz would maybe win a war anyway. So for him, maybe we have to hope that he doesn't have one available. But maybe if I see it and the iconoclasm hits, even Binky potentially could go for a war against you if he would like to. So yeah, making sure that you can defend against the war, even when the iconoclasm is revealed, could turn out to be quite important.
Yeah, particularly difficult turn, difficult circumstance. So yeah, my draws were kept the autonomous territory from previous colony card and a raid. Now I really could have done with, and it's probably a bit much to ask, but 2 defense cards to try and be somewhat safe. However, I got halfway there.
Yeah, yeah, at least one. Maybe that will still be somewhat helpful, but yeah, at this point we can need any help that we can get. And now, when we take a look at the overview for a quick moment, it certainly is starting to look dangerous because even without a war, our opponents have basically closed the culture gap. You are now a bit behind after getting hit by that armed intervention and losing some culture to famine. So yeah, we need to hope that maybe there isn't a big war happening, but also we need to make sure to still score some points. One big hope in order to get the necessary points is still Pierre, who you can maybe go for at the next turn and who can maybe generate quite a good amount of culture in the last few turns. At my turn, I will actually not seed the Impact of Wonders, but the Wealthy territory for the 2 culture of seeding. We just need some additional culture. From somewhere, and seeding is one way to get a bit of culture. For now, we don't know which players will get which wonders, or the Impact of Wonders could backfire a little bit. Maybe we should just go for that and hope that it will work in our favor, but at the end we rather went with 2 safe culture. Likely the Wealthy territory won't be revealed. And the event revealed is actually the Historic territory too, which is of course a way to gain quite a bit of culture, and we really needed to think about how much are willing to bid for that. As it's my turn and I can rebuild immediately, I think I'm the better I'm better prepared to bid for that one, and I think we were actually willing to send an air force and 2 cavalrymen away from me just because we need some culture from somewhere, and maybe I can still defend somewhat nicely, and we maybe have to hope that our opponents have no war anyway. So we were willing to go quite high on that bid. At the end, we win it even quite cheaply, surprisingly, and I'm win it for 8. Sadly, I don't have any colonization card available, which means that I still have to send 2 units, which is a bit expensive. It would have been better for maybe win it just for an Air Force with an H3 colonization card, but nonetheless, I get 11 additional culture here, which can maybe help us as keeping a bit of a lead, and with that, maybe increasing our chances of winning this game. Then I can increase my population during this turn, and of course now I have to do a bit of rebuilding. I rebuild a cavalryman, and I actually won't rebuild the Air Force. I would need to destroy something, maybe that could be fine, but it also would be expensive, and at least with being 9 strength behind Binki, I have now a shot at drawing a defense card, and maybe that will make it that Binki hopefully won't try an aggression against me, and against Grozz I wouldn't be able to defend anyway, and also the chances of drawing a defense card would be decreased if I spend another military action, so chances to defend against Grozz are really not that big, and our opponents basically know that I don't have any defense cards, or at least no H3 defense cards, with sending a cavalryman and an air force away. And then it's a bit tricky what to do. There's the United Nations, which I could just take, but which is also a bit expensive to take. Um, I mean, I could just take it, but there's also this military build-up, and we just need to threaten a bit of a higher amount of strength so that at least Binki won't be able to go for a war against us. And at the end, I actually went with the oil here. Using the efficient upgrade will increase the amount of resource that I will actually have available over the next turns. It will also increase my science and culture production thanks to Marie Curie. It leaves me a bit low in science, making it that I can't go for tanks or satellites at the next turn, but still it felt like a somewhat good option, increasing my culture output just by a little bit, maybe being better prepared for some impacts. And the alternatives are also just really not that great. Like this, I can get rid of a card that I have in hand. I can then take the urban growth and the democracy. I just try to take quite a bunch of cards here in order to maybe open up the possibility that you can then end the age during your turn, and that was one of the best turns that we found, where taking a lot of cards while at least doing something useful seemed possible. And now, if I would still have enough science to go for tanks at the next turn, I think that I would have a lot better feeling about this turn. Now it could limit my military potential, but at this point we maybe have to hope to somehow not get hit by any wars anyway. and then I will get 3 draws. I actually draw a defense card, meaning I can defend against Binki. I then draw a war and a tactic, sadly no new impact for now. It's Binki's turn, he will try an aggression against you. You can defend, was still a bit of a question if you want to defend with sacrificing a swordsman or with the defense card, yeah, I think we don't know if there will even be another aggression happening at this point. Quite a bunch of aggressions are out, and then maybe it could be better to just keep the unit instead of the defense card. Then Binki will destroy a bunch of mines. Will then go for 2 more cannons, takes the military build-up, which I actually haven't taken. I mean, I talked about it, thinking for a moment that I will actually take it during my last turn, but of course we decided to rather take a bunch of more cards, as ending the game a turn earlier could be the more relevant thing than actually having those resources, especially because I have a fine amount of resource anyway. But now Binki will get the military build-up, which might actually help him getting even another army, and the way how he is playing this turn looked not good for us, because he is doing some big sacrifices, is using all of his military action, so isn't getting any new draws, and with that it really looks like he is planning to go for war. The next turn he's also only taking 1 card from the row, and if Grozz now also doesn't take anything, then they could make it that you don't have the chance to end the age. And sadly, there's another raid. Grozz is now able to destroy 2 of your arenas, so that's definitely another very big setback. He will gain 5 additional resources, takes the civil service, develops it, increases his population, actually builds an additional farm, interestingly, but it allows him to increase his population at the next turn, maybe helps also for some impacts. Takes the oil, only takes the civil service from a non-discard spot, and with that there will be 6 cards left for you, and with the hand space that you're having, sadly ending the age at your turn won't be a possibility. So yeah, what did you do at the end at your turn?
Yeah, sadly, as you say, it wasn't possible to end the age. And given that I'm now keeping autonomous territory for myself to look at, decided I'm going to not seed again. I think the writing was on the wall, really, from when you got the very cheap historic 2. We obviously wanted it for the additional culture. I think they sort of passed up, turned their noses up at it, because they obviously wanted that double aggression to go through, and the only hope was that they didn't really have a war now going into what would be the penultimate turn. So for my turn, we decided that playing reserves 3 for resources and taking the population from Ocean Liner service allowed me to rebuild both of my destroyed arenas. And this then led into taking and electing Pierre. Obviously, we needed it for the culture, but there was also the threat, having known that Iconoclasm was in the deck. It could potentially be a bit awkward. Iconoclasm get revealed. We could lose him before the Olympic Games was declared, which in theory might actually be quite good for us, because if they're seeding, they're not warring. But this seemed the obvious play, so taking and electing Pierre, and then given that I couldn't end the age, taking the endowment of arts for 3 seemed like it was going to cancel out the loss of culture from famine that I couldn't really avoid taking for the second turn in a row, sadly. So the potential of gaining 6 from endowment mitigated the -4 and gave me at least a 2 profit, even if it is expensive in civil actions.
No, no. So definitely not great just having to rebuild those arenas that you've just lost, but now at this point just trying to grab the additional culture looks like the best thing. Also, you will have 2 draws at the end of your turn, so maybe there's the hope of drawing one of the few impacts that we could score some culture in.
Yeah, so my first card I drew Positional Army, and the second one I drew the Impact of Competition. So, not overly helpful.
No, no. So now it's my turn. I seed the Impact of Wonders into the deck, which with the culture of seeding should end up being fine for us. I will also take the United Nations this turn, so maybe there's a chance that I will be able to finish that wonder. The event revealed is the Immigration, so the Iconoclasm stays in the deck for now. I will, as said, take the United Nations, play the reserves for food before I lose them to the end of the age, increase my population, build an additional air force, taking the engineering genius, and then yeah, I have the reserves, patriotism available to also the ability to maybe go for another arena with urban growth or efficient upgrade to threaten some strength. But especially Grozz, if he has a chance of getting air forces, and those will be revealed now as the last 3 cards are about to be revealed after my turn, he can go for an amount of strength that I sadly can't match. Maybe they will go against you anyway, though, as you have sadly not the ability to threaten a 3rd classic army at the moment. And yeah, so at this point, just going for that wonder and hoping that maybe we won't be disrupted by any wars. And then with my last 3 draws, I will draw 1 more Impact of Progress, which isn't really that great, and I draw 2 more wars, so who knows, maybe with seeing those wars, there's a chance that our opponents could have missed out on them. But if you remember Binki's last turn, it of course looked quite obvious that he probably has drawn one, and here it is indeed, a war where culture is declared against you, so Binki is actually going for the air forces, so Grozz doesn't go for them, maybe he doesn't have a war available. Binki going for 1 air force, destroys a farm and is fine with that. I think he could have also gone for 2 more cannons, but maybe didn't want to destroy as much. And then Grozz actually has a war himself. At least they are being quite fair to us. Both of us are getting hit by 1 war. They are not piling up on you. And Grozz then increases his population, destroys the farm, destroys a mine, and has just enough resources to build 3 more cannons. And that Great Wall is really doing a lot of work here. Grozz being now at 4 entrenchments tactic, meaning he has 12 resources and gets 12 additional strength of the Great Wall. That wonder is now almost giving enough as much strength as the Manhattan Project, and despite him having no air force with that big Great Wall, he's still at over 90 strength now and is at an amount of strength that I won't be able to match. And of course, with those 2 wars being declared against us, the last bits of hope that we still had in our position are now gone, because now we will just lose too much culture in order to come back. And so the last turns now will just be about just minimizing the culture deficit, and maybe our opponents will accidentally destroy all of their things because the cat is walking over the mouse or something. Maybe that could still be a hope, but even then, maybe the lead is just too big now. And then we are at your turn. So, what was your answer to that war from Binki?
Yeah, so I get to use politics phase again for the second time, not for seeding though. So I declare the Olympic Games. It's much like tapping the brakes on your car after you've already crashed it. To be fair, I don't think we've got much hope left. The double war has, as you said, written us off. So the turn seemed fairly straightforward in that I'll just use the ocean liner service for free population, build an arena, play patriotism 3 for the extra resources and action, then build a cavalryman. Then yeah, play the endowment for 6 culture. Take revolutionary ideas, and then the mechanized agriculture. I did look at taking the computers as well, but I decided I would give you the option for using the computers with Marie Curie just in case. Probably not needed, which chucked my strength up to 49 without the use of sacrificing, which is a loss of 20 at this stage. And just to top it off, I can't avoid famine again, but not just the once, the twice. So I'm at -8 culture. So the endowments didn't really limit much.
Yeah, so at this point
And
we have really lost quite a bit of culture from famine over the course of the game, which is of course not ideal.
yeah, and I just floated my last civil action, so that was it. Age 4, I don't make a draw.
No, no. So not a lot to do for your turn. I can at least use all of my actions if we want to search for something positive. I can play the patriotism. I tried a bit around in being interested in what my best defense looks like, and I think the best here is to go for tanks, destroy some stuff. I will actually destroy both farms because I won't have famine even with destroying both, and keeping the oil and the lab will still give me some benefits for Marie Curie. And then I can go for 2 tanks, 1 Air Force, and I have just enough military actions to upgrade both 2 more cavalrymen to tanks, putting me at 79 strength, so actually quite a respectable amount of strength, but still not enough to overtake Grozz, who is at 91. Also not being able to finish the United Nations, but at least going for a somewhat good defense here. And then it's Binki's turn. He will steal some culture from you, goes for the military build-up, destroys actually some stuff to go for more units, which could be a very big indicator that they actually have impact of strength in there, with Binki putting some effort into getting stronger than me. Then it's Grozz's turn. He will steal 17 culture from me, seeds an impact into the deck. The Iconoclasm is revealed. You will now lose Pierre, but the Olympic Games are already declared, and Grozz will lose even more culture by losing Einstein, because he he goes for 2 technologies this turn. So I guess you lose you lose the same amount of culture, so it doesn't really change that much. He will then take the space flight and starts building on it, but doesn't have the ability to finish it. And then we are at your last turn.
Yeah, so there was no real point in seeding the impact of competition at a loss. I mean, I know it might be a daunting situation, but yeah, I'm not self-harming with impact of competition going in there. So the use of ocean liner service again gives the free population. Not that I can really use it much with my plans. So we played revolutionary ideas, developed the mechanized agriculture, and then just upgrade a farm to get me finally out of famine. And I then float 3 civil actions, and that concludes it.
Yeah. So at that point, not really a lot else to do than at least making sure that your people are fed again, finally. And then before the final impacts, we can see that our opponents are both in the lead. I'm not that far behind, but you have now quite a bit of a gap to overcome, and especially with us also not being that nicely prepared for impacts at this point, there's not really any hope left. But let's still see how those final impacts will play out. Maybe the most exciting thing now actually is which one of Binki and Grozz will finish first, and maybe he gets the better stats for the in-app statistics. That maybe could still be something interesting to find out. So Impact of Wonders is very similar, actually, a tiny bit better for our opponents. Then there's indeed Impact of Strength in there. We have the Impact of Happiness, which is even somewhat good for us. Then there is the impact of balance, which is quite bad for almost all of the players. 3 players scoring 0 in that. And then the last impact is the impact of population, which gives both of our opponents plus 16, while I have a low amount of population, and at least you with the ocean liner also got up to 16 at the end. So yeah, at the end, Grozz finishing first for those statistics, and our opponent's team being able to win, and with that making it to the final. So not a great outcome for us, but congratulations to our opponents. They played very well, and now we will see if they maybe can win the whole thing, which of course would be good for us, so that we can say that we got eliminated against the winning team. And yeah, so what are your final thoughts of that game, and also of the tournament, as we are now eliminated?
Yeah, I think our opponents played very well. They, well, quite clearly, by far, the most difficult game we had across the tournament, and I think one of the main turning points where I felt that we were actually in some trouble was when we discussed Napoleon very briefly, and sort of maybe slept on not taking him, leaving him for Grozz, and uh, the kind of military push and potential that he would have, because he immediately took him and then started warring. I mean, I think they played exceptionally well. I always felt, particularly myself, on the back foot and kind of chasing. Couldn't really get any economy going, and their constant strength was just too much. Come finish, my economy took a battering. I think several times. I had to destroy stuff as well as yourself, and taking famine come finish. Just yeah, just proved how well they played, and how difficult it was for myself to try and generate any sort of economic engine.
Yeah, I think you're definitely right that war at the beginning of H2 with Napoleon was certainly a turning point. Before that, I was a bit the one who pressured them militarily, but I mean, they both went for some big food production early on, and maybe also showcased nicely how that can, of course, in the long run give them a big advantage in the military, as they will have new population to get in the military. And then we were just in the back foot and needed to do some very big sacrifices, as you said, for our economy. So very well played by our opponents. Maybe also some times the event order was a little bit unfavorable for us, with the economic progress staying the deck for quite long, and the barbarians being revealed instead of the reign of terror. But that of course happens sometimes, and yeah, and at the end our opponents just played it very well, went for a very nice military game, and at the end had the wars that they needed in order to defeat us. But I think at the end, even without the war over cultures, they might still be in a position or where they maybe could still potentially win without any war over culture played at the end. So they maybe didn't even need that at the end. And yeah, so with that, we are out of the tournament, or so at least we thought for a moment, but then out of the sudden there popped another game in the app from this tournament, and we found out that there is actually a third place match where we will play for the bronze medal in this tournament. So I was completely surprised by that, and I think you as well.
Yeah, it was. We were saying our emotional goodbyes, and congratulating each other on a fine run that came to a crashing halt, and then all of a sudden there's another another fixture pop up.
Yeah, yeah. So that was quite funny, and let's see if we can get the bronze medal. And yeah, we'll see if we cover that game here on the channel. Maybe depending on how many other tournament games are ongoing. But yeah, maybe we will come back one last time and see if we were able to grab that bronze medal, and end the tournament on a positive note again. Yeah, but nonetheless, I think we had quite a nice run in this tournament, making it to the semifinals, encountering some interesting teams, strong opponents, and now founding our final end boss in the team of Grozz and Binki. So, yeah. Then also thanks again, Ristey, for being willing to join me in the commentary and adding your thoughts, which is always very welcome.
Yeah, it's my pleasure as always. I just wanted to say before we shoot off that it's been an honor to play alongside a friend. I mean, I think we've been chatting for maybe like probably between 2 3 years maybe on Discord about through the ages, and not just playing alongside a friend, but a very strong through the ages player, world champion, in fact. And it's been a fantastic learning curve for myself. The experience has been like, invaluable, really, for myself. Gutted that our runs come to an end, but maybe it's come to an end because I did at one point in that last game threaten you with a visit to buy some beers if that situation where our defenders come to some fruition and we somehow won from that stage. But I just wanted to thank you really for being a great teammate who's uh, given a lot of time and effort into each of our turns. It is a long format, and it does require a lot of detail and attention put in, and time and effort. So, thanks again, mate, for being a very good uh, second second half of our team.
Yeah, thanks a lot for those words, and I can only give them back. I think it was a great experience. You also were a very nice teammate, and we had a lot of great discussions together, and a lot of fun figuring out those special team um, turns or the special situations that arise in such a team game. So I can only give the thanks back, and yeah. With that, we are at the end of the video. Do you have any last words, or yeah, are we at the end, I think?
No, I think it's at the end. Thanks to everyone that's hung around. I think this has been longer than the other two videos.
Yeah. All right. Then I hope yeah, those who made it so far had a lot of fun watching the video. Leave us our opinion in the comments. And yeah, I think a great run that we had. And yeah, I hope you also enjoyed following us in those team games. And with that, we are at the end. So thank you all for watching. Have a nice time, and see you all in the next video.